Marcus Webb's hand slammed into Elena's chest and she was falling 8,000 feet of empty air, screaming past no parachute, no rope, no chance. The man she'd trusted for 3 years had just shoved her out of a helicopter over the Colombian jungle. He didn't do it because he hated her. He did it because a cartel paid him $200,000 to watch her die. She had 40 seconds before impact. 40 seconds to understand that the Marines who'd sworn to protect her had already decided she was worth less than drug money. 40 seconds to accept that she was already dead. Before we tell you how she survived what nobody survives, hit that subscribe button and drop a comment telling us what city you're watching from. We love seeing how far these stories travel. Stay until the end, because what Captain Reyes did next will change everything you think you know about survival. The briefing room at Forward Operating Base Tolemeda smelled like burnt coffee and the particular anxiety that comes before dangerous missions. Elena sat with her spine straight, hands folded on the table, while Major Castellanos clicked through satellite images of the Caquetá River basin. 7 other Marines filled the room, their faces illuminated by the projector's blue glow. Intel confirms the cartel's moving a major weapons shipment through this corridor tonight, Castellanos said, tapping the screen. Reyes, your overwatch, surveillance only. Webb's team handles ground interdiction if we get positive ID. Elena's eyes found Marcus Webb across the room. They'd served together for 3 years. He'd been at her promotion ceremony. She'd met his wife and daughters. When she nodded acknowledgement, he smiled that easy smile she'd seen 100 times before. She didn't know it was the smile of a man who'd already decided to kill her. Questions, Castellanos asked. Castellanos. Webb raised his hand. Rules of engagement if they scatter into civilian areas. Pursued only with positive hostile identification. We're not here to create an international incident. The Major's eyes swept the room. This is reconnaissance with teeth. We observe, we document, and if opportunity presents itself, we interdict. Clean and professional. Elena's phone buzzed in her pocket. A text from her sister Dad's asking about you again. When are you coming home? She typed back, soon. Love you. She had no idea how many lies that message contained. 2 hours later, the Sikorsky's rotors carved the night into rhythmic thunder. Elena sat near the door gunner's position, her night vision goggles turning the world into shades of green and black. The jungle sprawled below like an infinite dark ocean, broken occasionally by the silver thread of rivers. Webb sat across from her, checking his weapon with practiced efficiency. Next to him, Corporal Danny Torres and Sergeant First Class Mike Patterson ran through comm checks. All 3 were part of Webb's regular team. All 3 had been with Elena on a dozen missions. 15 minutes to phase line Alpha. The pilot's voice crackled through her headset. Elena pulled up the digital map on her wrist display, memorizing terrain features. The Caquetá River curved through a valley approximately 80 miles south of their current position. 3 cartel compounds within a 20-mile radius. Indigenous villages scattered throughout. The math of intervention was never simple here. Hey Reyes, Webb's voice came through the comm. You remember that thing you said about the jungle? She looked up. Which thing? About how it's not trying to kill you. It's just indifferent to whether you live or die. Yeah, what about it? Webb's expression was unreadable behind his night vision equipment. Just thinking about indifference. How sometimes the most dangerous thing isn't hatred. It's when people just stop caring about consequences. Something cold touched Elena's spine. That's pretty philosophical for a surveillance op, Marcus. Long flight, makes you think. He turned to Torres. How's the family Danny kids doing okay? Torres brightened immediately. Yeah, man. Miguel's starting Little League this spring. Sophia's reading at a 5th grade level and she's only in 3rd. That's good. That's real good. Webb's voice carried a strange weight. You ever think about what you'd do for them, how far you'd go to give them a better life? Every day, Torres said. Why? Just curious about priorities. What matters more, the mission or the people waiting at home? Elena's hand drifted toward her sidearm. The gesture was subtle, instinctive. Something in Webb's tone had shifted. Not threatening exactly, but wrong somehow. Like a familiar song played in a minor key. Both matter, she said carefully. That's why we do this, right? Webb laughed, but it didn't reach his eyes. Right, yeah, doing things right. Patterson spoke for the first time, his voice flat. 5 minutes out. The helicopter banked left, following the river's course. Through the open door, Elena could see moonlight reflecting off the water. Beautiful and indifferent, just like she'd said. The jungle didn't care about their mission, their lives, or their betrayals. Reyes, Webb said suddenly. Come here for a second. Need your eyes on something. She unbuckled her safety harness and moved closer, keeping her balance against the helicopter's movement. Webb pointed out the door at the terrain below. See that clearing, 2 o'clock? She leaned forward, scanning. Yeah, I see it. That's where we're supposed to set up the observation post. You think the approach is clean? Elena studied the terrain through her night vision. Dense canopy, good concealment, high ground advantage. Looks solid. Why? Just wanted your read. Webb's hand moved to his knife. You've always had good instincts about this kind of thing. It's textbook LZ. Should be fine. Yeah. Webb's voice dropped to something barely audible beneath the rotor noise. Should be. Then everything happened faster than thought. The knife moved first, a black blur cutting through her harness straps with surgical precision. Elena's hand went for her weapon, but Torres was already there, grabbing her wrist with crushing force. Patterson's hands locked onto her tactical vest. What the hell? She started to say. Webb's face was 6 inches from hers, and in the green wash of night vision, she saw something in his eyes she'd never seen before. Not hatred, not anger, just that indifference he'd talked about, the kind that made murder a business transaction. The cartel pays better than Uncle Sam, he said. You've been too effective, Elena. Every route you close, every shipment you intercept, you're costing them millions. They're willing to pay $200,000 to make the problem go away. Her mind processed the information in fragments. 3 years of friendship, shared meals, stories about his daughters. All of it built on a foundation that had never existed. You're going to kill me for money. Her voice was steady despite Torres's grip cutting off circulation to her hand. Equipment malfunction, Webb said. Harness failure at altitude, tragic accident. Happens all the time in hostile territory. Your sister will get a flag and a heartfelt letter from the commanding officer. Marcus, she tried to reach him, the person she thought she knew. Your girls. You really want them to grow up knowing their father murdered a fellow Marine? Something flickered in his expression. For a moment, she thought she'd found a crack in whatever wall he'd built inside himself. Then it vanished. They'll grow up comfortable, he said. College funds, nice house. Everything I couldn't give them on a sergeant's salary. That's worth more than your life, Elena. That's worth more than guilt. Torres pulled her toward the open door. The wind screamed past 1,000 miles of nothing between the helicopter and the jungle floor below. You could let me go, she said, words coming fast now. Take the money and run. I won't report it. Just let me live. Webb actually laughed. You're the most honest person I know. That's your problem. You'd report us the second you could. You can't help yourself. Patterson opened his grip, and suddenly Elena was balancing on the edge with only Torres holding her. 8,000 feet of empty air yawned beneath her boots. Wait, her voice cracked. Not fear calculation. She needed seconds. The cartel. Which lieutenant hired you? Does it matter? Webb asked. I've been tracking them for 2 years. I know every major player. Was it Morales Gutierrez? Someone I haven't identified yet. Webb studied her with something almost like respect. Still gathering intel, even now. It's what I do. It's what you did. He nodded to Torres. Do it. Torres's hands shifted, preparing to shove. In that half-second of repositioning, Elena moved. She twisted hard right, using Torres's grip as an anchor point to swing her legs up and catch Patterson in the chest with both boots. The impact knocked him backward into the cabin. Her hand finally reached her sidearm, but Webb was already there. His knife came down, and she felt the blade slice across her forearm. The gun clattered away into darkness. Points for effort, Webb said. Then all three of them grabbed her at once. She fought knees, elbows, teeth, everything her hand-to-hand training had taught her. She connected with someone's face, heard Torres grunt in pain, felt her knuckles split against Patterson's jaw. But 3 against 1 in a confined space was mathematics, not heroism. They overwhelmed her through sheer mass and leverage. "Should have just taken the fall quiet," Webb said in her ear. "Could have made it peaceful." They lifted her like she weighed nothing. For one suspended moment, Elena saw the cabin interior, the other Marines watching in horror, the pilot starting to turn the equipment scattered across the floor. She saw Torres's face, and there was something like regret there. Then they threw her out. The helicopter's wash caught her like a giant's hand, spinning her away from the aircraft. The rotor noise dropped away to nothing, just wind and darkness, and the terrible, perfect silence of free fall. Elena's training kicked in before conscious thought could catch up. She spread her arms and legs, creating drag, stabilizing her tumbling descent. Her night vision goggles had stayed on somehow, showing her the world rushing up in stark green detail. Terminal velocity for a human body is approximately 120 miles per hour. At that speed, air becomes tangible, something you can feel and shape and use. She wasn't skydiving. There was no parachute, no reserve chute, no possibility of deployment. She was simply falling with slightly more control than a brick, but control mattered. Below, the jungle spread like a dark carpet, but her eyes locked onto the one feature that might offer survival. The Caquetá River, swollen from seasonal rains, curving through the valley in a wide, deep bend. She'd studied water entries during advanced survival training. The physics were brutal, but not impossible. Feet first entry. Body rigid, arms tight against torso, enter at as close to vertical as possible. The water's surface tension would break her legs, possibly her spine, probably kill her, but probably wasn't certainly. She adjusted her body position, trying to steer her fall toward the river's deepest section where 2 tributaries joined. The margin of error was invisible from this height. Miss by 50 feet and she'd hit the shallow rapids. Miss by 100 and she'd impact the jungle canopy, which would shred her like a cheese grater before the ground finished the job. The wind tore at her uniform. She'd lost her helmet. Her hair whipped across her face, obscuring her vision. She used her body as a wing-shifting weight, changing angles, fighting wind currents that wanted to tumble her into an uncontrolled spin. 30 seconds had passed. Maybe 10 seconds remained. The river resolved from a silver thread to distinct features. She could see rocks now, white water, the bend where the current ran deepest. She aimed her body like an arrow, keeping her legs together, pointing her toes, tucking her chin to her chest. 2,500 feet. Everything moved faster now, the green world accelerating into a blur. Elena thought about her sister's text. "When are you coming home?" She thought about her father's Alzheimer's, how he sometimes forgot her face but never forgot teaching her to swim in the Amazon tributaries during her childhood. She thought about Webb's daughters who would grow up with blood money in their college funds. 1,500 feet. Details emerging, individual trees, specific rocks, the exact point where she needed to enter the water. She thought about all the times she'd told her Marines that survival wasn't luck, it was preparation meeting opportunity, that every impossible situation had one possible solution if you were willing to do the math and accept the cost. 800 feet. The river filled her vision now. She'd done the math. The cost was every bone below her waist, possibly her spine, definitely her future in the field. But the alternative was decorating 50 square feet of jungle floor. 400 feet. Elena closed her eyes. The night vision goggles didn't matter anymore. Distance was measured in heartbeats now and did something she hadn't done since childhood. She prayed. Not for survival. The odds were too long for that. She prayed that whoever found her body would find the GPS tracker in her vest with its built-in recording function that had captured every word Webb said, that her death wouldn't be wasted, that the truth wouldn't die with her in the jungle. 200 feet. The water's surface rushed up like a dark mirror. At the last instant, Elena opened her eyes, made one final adjustment to her body position, and stopped fighting. Sometimes survival means accepting impact. She hit the river feet first at 117 miles per hour. The world exploded into chaos and pain. The water didn't feel like water. It felt like concrete wrapped in razors. Her left ankle shattered instantly, bones splintering like dry wood. Her right knee dislocated with a pop she felt more than heard. The impact traveled up her spine, compressing vertebrae, tearing ligaments, turning her lower body into a collection of broken pieces held together by muscle and skin. But she was conscious. The river pulled her down into darkness current, grabbing her like a living thing. Her training screamed at her to swim, to reach the surface, but her legs wouldn't respond. The water pressure squeezed her chest. She couldn't tell which direction was up. Her lungs began to burn. 30 seconds without air. Maybe 45 if she didn't panic. Elena forced herself to stop thrashing. She opened her eyes. The night vision goggles were gone, ripped away by impact, and looked for any source of light. There. A faint glow above and to her left. The moon. She used her arms, pulling against the current. Her right shoulder screamed in protest, tendons stretched past their limit during the fall. But her left arm still worked. She clawed upward through water that felt thick as oil. Her head broke the surface and she gasped, pulling in air mixed with river water. Choking, coughing, but breathing. The current had her now, dragging her downstream toward what sounded like rapids. She couldn't see clearly in the darkness, couldn't orient herself, couldn't do anything but keep her head above water and try to steer with her one functional arm. Something hard struck her ribs, a submerged log or rock. She cried out. Lost her air, went under again. The river tumbled her like laundry, and for several seconds she had no idea where the surface was. Then her hand caught something. Rough bark. A tree branch hanging low over the water. She grabbed it with grip strength, born of pure desperation, held on while the current tried to tear her away. For maybe 30 seconds, she just hung there, breathing, bleeding, broken, but alive. Then she heard the helicopter. Webb's team wasn't leaving anything to chance. They were coming back to verify the kill, make sure she hadn't somehow survived. And if she had survived, they'd finish the job. Elena pulled herself hand over hand along the branch toward the bank. Her legs dragged uselessly behind her dead weight, sending fresh jolts of agony up her spine with every movement. She wanted to scream, to cry, to give up and let the river take her. Instead, she pulled. The bank was a muddy slope tangled with roots. She dragged herself up, using her arms alone, inch by agonizing inch, leaving a trail of blood and river water. The helicopter's searchlight swept across the water, maybe 200 yards upstream. She needed cover, needed concealment, needed to disappear before that light found her. 10 feet from the water, she found a fallen log overgrown with moss and vines. She crawled beneath it, pulling vegetation over herself, trying to control her ragged breathing. The helicopter noise grew louder. Through gaps in the foliage, she saw the searchlight painting the river in harsh white. The Sikorsky hovered low downwash, creating waves on the water's surface. She could see figures in the door, Webb and his team, scanning for her body. "See anything?" Webb's voice carried over the rotor noise. "Negative," Torres replied. "Water's too dark. If she went in, the current's got her by now. Keep looking. I want confirmation." The helicopter moved downstream, following the river's course. The searchlight swept past Elena's hiding spot, and for one terrible second, she thought the beam would catch her. But the vegetation held. They passed by without slowing. She waited until the helicopter noise faded into the distance, waited until the jungle sounds returned, insects, birds, the rustle of nocturnal predators. Waited until she was sure they were gone. Then finally she allowed herself to assess the damage. Her left ankle was destroyed, bone fragments grinding under the skin. Her right knee pointed in a direction knees shouldn't point. Her ribs felt cracked or broken. Her right shoulder was partially dislocated. Cuts and bruises covered every visible inch of skin. But she was alive. Elena reached for her tactical vest fingers, searching for the GPS unit. Still there. Still intact. She activated it with shaking hands, checking the recording function. Green light. Everything Webb had said was captured in digital memory. Evidence. Proof. Justice. All she had to do was survive long enough to deliver it. She looked around, trying to orient herself. The river flowed south. The nearest Colombian army outpost was approximately 40 miles north. Through territory controlled by the cartel Webb had sold his soul to. Through jungle she could barely move in, even when healthy. 40 miles might as well have been 4,000. Elena closed her eyes, breathing through the pain, and heard her father's voice from 20 years ago. They'd been lost in the Amazon during one of his research expeditions. She'd been terrified, crying sure they would die. "Mija," he'd said, "the jungle doesn't care if you're scared. It doesn't care if you're hurt. It only cares about one thing: are you still moving? Because if you're still moving, you're still alive. And if you're still alive, you haven't lost yet." She opened her eyes and started crawling north. The first mile took her 3 hours. By the time the sky began to lighten with false dawn, she'd covered maybe 2 miles. Her hands were raw, bleeding from pulling herself over roots and rocks. Her broken legs dragged behind her like anchors. But she was moving. She found a depression between 2 massive tree roots and collapsed into it, breathing hard, tasting blood. Her body screamed for rest, for water, for medical attention it wouldn't receive. Instead, she did a tactical assessment. Assets: 1 GPS unit with evidence, 1 combat knife still strapped to her belt, basic survival knowledge, extensive intel on the cartel operating in this territory, liabilities, catastrophic leg injuries, probable internal injuries, no weapons, no food, no water purification, no medical supplies, and a team of trained killers who would be hunting her as soon as they realized she might have survived. The math wasn't good, but math was just numbers, and numbers could be changed. Elena pulled out her knife and cut strips from her uniform pants. She fashioned a crude splint for her ankle using branches and cloth, biting through the pain as she wrapped the injury tight enough to provide minimal support. The knee was worse, dislocated, swollen, unstable. She couldn't fix it properly without medical intervention, but she could immobilize it. The process took an hour and left her gasping visions spotted with black on the edge of passing out. But when she finished, her legs were at least somewhat stabilized. She still couldn't walk, but she could drag herself more efficiently. She heard voices. Elena froze, every muscle, locked breath held. Spanish casual conversation getting closer. Not military cadence, civilian, probably local. Could be villagers, could be cartel scouts. Through the undergrowth, she saw 3 men walking a game trail maybe 30 yards from her position. They carried machetes, wore civilian clothes, and moved with the easy confidence of people on their home ground. One of them stopped, looking directly at the depression where Elena hid. "Hueles eso? Smell that? Que? What? Sangre. Blood." Elena's hand moved to her knife. If they were cartel, she'd have to kill them quietly. 3 against 1 with broken legs and 1 arm. The mathematics were impossible, but impossible had stopped meaning much to her. The man took a step toward her hiding spot. "Déjalo, Miguel," one of the others said. "Probablemente un jaguar mató algo." Probably just a jaguar kill. Miguel hesitated, then shrugged. "Tienes razón. You're right." They moved on, voices fading into the jungle's ambient noise. Elena released her held breath and allowed herself exactly 30 seconds of shaking, teeth-clenched reaction to how close that had been. Then she started moving again. By noon, she'd covered maybe 5 miles. The sun turned the jungle into a sauna. Dehydration was becoming a serious problem. She could feel it in her dry mouth, her pounding headache, the way her thoughts were starting to fragment. She needed water. The sound of running water pulled her to a small stream. She crawled to its edge and drank, knowing she was risking parasites and bacteria but not caring. Thirst was an immediate problem. Parasites were a future problem, and she might not have a future. While she drank, she heard the helicopter again. They were running a search pattern, sweeping the area in expanding circles, looking for her body, or looking for evidence that she'd survived. Elena pulled herself under the stream's overhang, pressing into the muddy bank while the helicopter passed overhead. They didn't land, didn't stop, but they were searching, which meant Webb wasn't certain she was dead, which meant he was scared. Good. She waited until the helicopter was gone, then continued north. The stream ran roughly parallel to her route, so she followed it, dragging herself through the shallows. The water was cold, which helped with the swelling, and it masked her blood trail. She'd gone maybe another mile when she heard English. "Don't care what you think I'm telling you, she's alive," Webb's voice coming from ahead. Elena froze, pressed herself against the stream bank, slow and quiet. Nobody survives an 8,000-foot fall, Torres said. It's not possible. Maybe, but I'm not taking chances. If she survived, she'll head north, toward the Colombian outpost. We need to establish checkpoints, cover the likely routes. You're paranoid, Patterson said. I'm careful. There's a difference. Webb's voice moved closer. And if by some miracle she did survive, she's got the GPS unit. With the recording. Jesus, Torres breathed. If that gets out, it won't. Because we're going to find her first. They were maybe 50 yards upstream. Elena's hand tightened on her knife. She could stay hidden, let them pass. Or she could try to ambush them. Eliminate the threat while she had surprise. 3 trained operators. Her with broken legs and 1 functional arm. The smart play was hiding. But Elena's mind was working through the numbers differently. They were hunting her. They'd keep hunting until they found her or confirmed she was dead. She couldn't outrun them, couldn't outlast them. Her only advantage was that they thought she was helpless prey. They were wrong. She waited until they were exactly parallel to her position. Then she moved. The knife left her hand with all the force her left arm could generate. It spun twice and buried itself in Patterson's right thigh. He went down screaming, and in the chaos that followed, Elena pulled herself out of the stream and grabbed the closest thing she could reach, a fist-sized rock. Torres spun toward her rifle coming up. She threw the rock and connected with his face, shattering his nose. He stumbled backward, blood pouring. Webb had his weapon aimed at her head before she could move again. Clever, he said, stupidly suicidal, but clever. Elena raised her hands slowly, breathing hard, every nerve ending on fire. Shoot me, and everyone hears the shot. You're in cartel territory, Marcus. You really want to advertise your position? His fingers stayed on the trigger. For 5 long seconds they stared at each other. Then Patterson groaned. She stabbed me. She actually stabbed me. Shut up, Webb snapped. His eyes never left Elena. How are you even alive? Skill, she said. Luck, physics. Take your pick. The fall should have killed you. Should have. Didn't. Webb's jaw clenched. Where's the GPS unit? Safe. Elena, give me the GPS unit and I'll make this quick. No pain, just over. That's better than what's coming if you keep fighting. What's coming is you in federal prison, she said. The recording's encrypted and set to auto-upload if I don't enter a code every 12 hours. You kill me. It goes public. Game over. It was a complete bluff. The GPS unit had no such function. But Webb didn't know that. His expression shifted, uncertainty flickering. You're lying. Am I? You want to bet your freedom on it. Torres had recovered enough to aim his rifle at her, blood still streaming from his nose. Just shoot her, Marcus. End this. And spend the rest of my life wondering if that recording is sitting on some server waiting to destroy me. Webb shook his head. No, we do this smart. Elena, last chance. Give me the GPS unit and tell me the code. I'll make it painless. Counteroffer, Elena said. Turn yourselves in, testify against the cartel. Maybe you get 20 years instead of life. Webb actually smiled. You know what your problem is. You still think there are rules, that justice matters, that doing the right thing means something. It does. It means you die broke and forgotten while scumbags get rich. He gestured to Torres. Zip tie her hands. We're taking her with us. If there's a code, we'll get it out of her. Torres moved forward, pulling zip ties from his vest. Elena measured distances, calculated angles, and came up empty. She had no moves left, no weapons, no escape. The jungle exploded with gunfire. Not from Webb's team, from somewhere west. Automatic weapons, multiple shooters. The cartel, Elena realized. They'd heard the commotion, were coming to investigate. Webb's head snapped around. Contact West Patterson, can you move? My leg. Move or die. More gunfire closer now. Elena saw muzzle flashes through the trees. The cartel sicarios were advancing in a skirmish line, professional and coordinated. Webb grabbed Torres. We have to go, now. What about her? Webb looked at Elena, still on the ground, helpless. The cartel will deal with her. Let's go. They ran crashing through the undergrowth, leaving her alone. Elena dragged herself back toward the stream as bullets cut through the foliage above her head. She rolled into the water, let the current pull her, moving with single-minded focus despite the agony in her legs. The gunfire continued behind her, Webb's team engaging the cartel, buying her time without meaning to. She used every second pulling herself downstream, putting distance between herself and the firefight. When the shooting finally stopped, she was maybe 200 yards away, hidden in dense vegetation, at a bend in the stream. She could hear voices, Spanish, angry, searching. They'd found the blood, were tracking her. Elena reached for the GPS unit and did something she'd avoided until now because she knew what it would cost. She activated the emergency beacon. Within seconds, every military and intelligence asset within range would know her position. The Colombian army would send help, but the cartel would also track the signal, and Webb would know she'd called for rescue, would know he had limited time to find her before help arrived. The race was on. She had maybe 90 minutes before friendlies could reach her position. Could she survive 90 minutes with cartel sicarios hunting her and Webb's team, desperate to silence her? The mathematics said no. But Elena had stopped listening to mathematics around the time she fell 8,000 feet and lived. She started moving again, dragging herself north through water and mud and blood, counting seconds, making every moment count. Behind her, she heard Webb's voice echoing through the jungle. "Find her. I want her found now." 90 minutes. Elena pulled herself forward. 89 minutes. The jungle didn't care if she made it, but she cared, and sometimes that was enough. Elena's arms trembled as she pulled herself through the shallow stream bed, counting seconds between heartbeats. 88 minutes until rescue. The emergency beacon pulsed against her chest, a lifeline and a death sentence, broadcasting her location to everyone within range. Water mixed with blood in her wake, a trail any competent tracker could follow, even in darkness. She heard boots splashing upstream, multiple sets. The cartel sicarios were moving fast, coordinated, professional. These weren't street thugs. These were trained killers who knew how to hunt. "La señal viene de aquí," one of them called. "The signal's coming from here." Elena dragged herself behind a fallen tree and pressed her body into the mud, trying to become invisible. Her broken legs screamed protest. She bit down on her sleeve to keep from crying out, tasting fabric and river water and her own copper-bright blood. The boots came closer. She could see them through gaps in the deadfall, combat boots, tactical pants, weapons held ready. 4 men moving in a diamond formation, checking corners, covering angles. Military training written in every movement. One of them stopped 3 feet from her hiding place. "Hey, sangre aquí," he said. "Blood here." Elena's hand found a rock the size of her fist. If he looked over the log, if he saw her, she'd have maybe one chance to strike before the others opened fire. The odds were worse than bad, but she'd already beaten worse odds tonight. The man took a step closer. His rifle barrel appeared over the top of the log, sweeping slowly. Then Webb's voice cut through the jungle from the east. "Contact, contact, taking fire." Gunshots erupted, rapid and chaotic. The sicario near Elena's position jerked his head toward the sound. "Vamos, let's go." They ran toward the firefight, leaving her alone again. Elena didn't waste time questioning the gift. She pulled herself out of the stream, moving perpendicular to both groups, using the gunfight as cover. Every yard was agony. Her splinted ankle caught on roots. Her dislocated knee twisted wrong, and she nearly blacked out from the pain. She made it maybe 50 yards before the shooting stopped. In the sudden silence, she heard Webb's voice again, closer than before. "She went north. Has to be. The beacon's moving." "How do you know it's moving?" Torres asked, breathing hard. "Because I'm tracking it, you idiot. I've got a receiver for Colombian military emergency frequencies. She activated the beacon, and now we know exactly where she is." Elena's blood went cold. The beacon she'd activated to call for help was guiding Webb right to her. She reached for the GPS unit, fingers shaking, and killed the emergency signal. Silence. Blessed, terrible silence. But the damage was done. Webb had her last known position, and he'd watched the beacon move. He could extrapolate her direction, her speed, narrow down her location to a search grid, maybe 200 yards square. She started moving faster, ignoring the pain, focusing on distance. Every second of noise from the GPS unit had given Webb intelligence. Every second of silence now worked against her. He knew she'd gone dark deliberately, which meant he knew she knew he was tracking her. The hunter knew the prey was aware. "Fan out," Webb's voice carried through the trees. 50-yard spacing. She can't move fast with those injuries. We find her in the next 10 minutes or we're gone. 10 minutes. Elena counted the time in heartbeats and the rhythm of pulling herself forward. Her arms burned, her vision blurred at the edges. But she moved. She found a game trail cutting northeast and followed it using exposed roots as handholds. The trail led uphill, which was suicide with her injuries, but it also led away from Webb's search grid. Sometimes, the only choice was between two kinds of dying. 5 minutes passed. She'd covered maybe 100 yards uphill. Not enough. Not nearly enough. She heard something ahead, not behind with Webb's team, but ahead on the trail. Footsteps. Light, careful moving toward her position. Elena grabbed a branch and pulled herself off the trail, rolling into the undergrowth just as a figure appeared around the bend. A child. Maybe 10 years old, indigenous features, wearing a tattered shirt and carrying a machete too large for his small hands. He stopped exactly where Elena had been, head cocked, listening. She held perfectly still. If the boy was alone, she might stay hidden. If he called out, if he alerted anyone to her presence, it was over. The boy knelt and touched the ground where Elena's blood had dripped. He studied it for a long moment, then looked directly at her hiding place. "Señora," he whispered, "los hombres malos te están buscando." "Bad men are looking for you." Elena's throat closed. "See?" she managed. "Yes. Mi abuela puede ayudar." "My grandmother can help." He gestured up the trail. "Venga." "Come." "No puedo caminar." "I can't walk." The boy studied her broken legs, her makeshift splints, the blood. "Puedo conseguir ayuda." "I can get help." "Quédate aquí." "Stay here." "No." Elena started, but he was already moving, disappearing up the trail like smoke. She was alone again, completely exposed. If the boy told anyone, cartel villagers, Webb's team, her position was compromised. But she had no other options. No moves left. No clever plans. So she waited, counting seconds, listening to Webb's team search the jungle behind her. 3 minutes passed. 4. She heard them getting closer, their voices carrying in the still air. "She's got to be close," Patterson said. "She's leaving blood everywhere." "Then where is she?" Webb snapped. "We should have found her by now." "Maybe she died. Internal bleeding shock, something." "Maybe. Or maybe she's smarter than we're giving her credit for." Elena pressed deeper into the vegetation, making herself as small as possible. They were close enough now that she could hear their breathing, their equipment rattling. Then the boy reappeared, silent as a ghost, with an old woman behind him. She looked about 70, weathered and small, but her eyes were sharp. She took one look at Elena and started speaking rapid Spanish, too fast to follow completely, but the meaning was clear. They were going to move her. "No time," Elena whispered. "They're right there. Confía en mí. Trust me." The old woman pulled a bundle of vegetation from her bag and started rubbing it on Elena's skin, her clothes, the ground around them. The smell was overwhelming, sharp and medicinal, and wrong somehow. Webb's voice came from maybe 30 yards away. "I'm telling you, she came this way." The old woman gestured for Elena to stay silent and still. Then she and the boy moved away, back down the trail, making noise deliberately. The woman called out in Spanish, "Miguel, Miguel ven, a comer. Miguel, come eat." The boy responded, his voice carrying, "Ya voy abuela, coming grandmother." Their voices faded as they moved away from Elena's position, drawing attention away. Webb's team appeared on the trail seconds later. Elena could see them through the foliage, close enough to touch. Torres passed within 5 feet of her hiding place. Patterson stopped sniffing. "You smell that?" "Smell what?" Webb asked. "Something medicinal. Weird." Webb gestured impatiently. "It's the jungle. Everything smells weird. Keep moving." They continued down the trail, following the sound of the old woman's voice. Elena waited until she couldn't hear them anymore, then started pulling herself uphill again, following the direction the boy had gone. She found them at a clearing where several small structures stood on stilts. The old woman was waiting, gesturing urgently. Rapido, rapido. The boy and an older man lifted Elena as carefully as they could and carried her into one of the structures. The pain was indescribable. She bit through her lip, trying not to scream, tasting blood. Inside, the old woman had already prepared a space. They laid Elena on woven mats, and the woman started examining her injuries with hands that knew exactly what they were doing. ¿Hablas español?" she asked. "You speak Spanish?" "Sí, un poco." "Yes, a little." "Tu pierna está muy mal." "Your leg is very bad." "Necesitas un médico." "You need a doctor." "No hay tiempo." "There's no time." Elena fumbled for the GPS unit. "Tengo que... I have to." "Shh." The old woman pressed a cup of something bitter to Elena's lips. "Bebe, para el dolor." "Drink, for the pain." Elena hesitated. For all she knew, this woman was cartel connected. The drink was poison, and she was about to die in a stranger's house in the middle of the Colombian jungle. But her body was failing. The pain was becoming unbearable, and she was out of choices. She drank. The world went soft at the edges, not unconscious exactly, but distant. The old woman worked on her legs while the pain retreated to something manageable. Elena felt hands setting bones, wrapping injuries, applying something that smelled like the vegetation from before. Time became elastic. Minutes or hours passed. She heard voices speaking Spanish, arguing about something. The boy's voice urgent. The old man's voice cautious. The old woman's voice final and commanding. Then silence. Elena surfaced from the medicinal haze to find the old woman sitting beside her, watching with those sharp eyes. "Los hombres malos se fueron," she said. "The bad men left. Pero volverán. But they'll return. Siempre vuelven. They always return." "Gracias," Elena managed. "Por qué? Why help me?" The old woman was quiet for a moment. "Mi hijo era soldado," she said finally. "My son was a soldier. Los hombres del cartel lo mataron hace 3 años. The cartel men killed him 3 years ago. Porque dijo no. Because he said no. Lo siento. I'm sorry. No lo sientas. Lucha. Don't be sorry. Fight." She touched the GPS unit still clutched in Elena's hand. "Esta es tu arma. This is your weapon." "Sí. Tiene. It has evidence. Proof. Contra los hombres malos. Against the bad men." The old woman nodded slowly. "Entonces debes sobrevivir. Then you must survive." She stood with difficulty, her joints protesting. "Descansa ahora. Mi nieto vigilará." "Rest now. My grandson will watch." Elena wanted to argue, to stay alert, to keep moving, but her body had reached its limit. The pain medicine and exhaustion pulled her under like the river current, and she sank into darkness. She woke to the boy shaking her shoulder urgently. "Señora, señora, los hombres regresan." "The men are coming back." Elena forced herself awake, mind struggling through the medication fog. Outside, she heard voices. English voices. "Told you she came this way," Webb was saying. "The blood trail leads right here." "These people won't harbor a fugitive," Torres replied. "They know better than to cross us." Elena tried to sit up. The old woman appeared, pressing her back down. "Quédate aquí," she hissed. "Stay here. Confía." Trust. She threw a blanket over Elena, then scattered various items on top: cooking pots, fabric supplies. Elena disappeared under the domestic debris, trying to control her breathing, trying to stay silent. She heard boots on the wooden steps. Webb's voice, closer now. "Buenos días. Estamos buscando a alguien." "Good morning. We're looking for someone." His Spanish was adequate American accented, but functional. "Una mujer. Soldado americana. Herida." A woman. American soldier. Injured. The old woman responded in rapid Spanish, her voice elderly and querulous. Elena caught maybe half of it, something about not seeing anyone, about leaving an old woman in peace, about respecting her home. "We're going to search anyway," Webb said, switching back to English. "Just to be sure." Footsteps crossed the floor. Elena could see boots through a gap in the blanket. Her hand found the combat knife the old woman had somehow retrieved from the riverbank. If Webb pulled back the blanket, if he found her, she'd go for his throat. One last strike before they ended her. The boots stopped 6 inches from her hiding place. "Anything," Webb called. "Just an old woman's junk," Patterson replied. "Let's check the other structures." Wait, Webb's boots didn't move. Something's wrong here. Elena's grip tightened on the knife. "What?" Torres asked. "Look at this blanket. See how it's positioned. It's covering something deliberately, not just thrown there. So old people are messy. Or old people are hiding something." Webb's hand reached down toward the blanket. The old woman started speaking again, her voice rising. "Respeta mi casa. No tienes derecho. Respect my house. You have no right." "Ma'am, step back," Webb said. "Es mi casa. Mi casa. My house." The boy ran in yelling. "Abuela, abuela, el hombre del cartel está aquí." "Grandmother, the cartel man is here." Webb's hand froze. "Cartel? What cartel?" Outside, a vehicle engine grew louder, voices shouting in Spanish, the sound of weapons being readied. "Shit," Torres breathed. "We need to go, now." "Not without checking." "Marcus, the cartel is here. We stay, we fight them. We fight them, we blow our cover. We blow our cover, command asks questions. Let's go." Webb's hand withdrew. His boots turned toward the door. "This isn't over," he said to the old woman. "We'll be back." They left at a run. Elena heard them arguing as they descended the steps, their voices fading into the jungle. The old woman pulled the blanket off Elena. "El cartel no está aquí," she said calmly. "The cartel isn't here. Mi nieto mintió. My grandson lied." She smiled, showing gaps in her teeth. "Es un buen muchacho." "He's a good boy." Elena started laughing, which hurt her ribs, which made her laugh harder in a slightly hysterical way. "You're incredible," she said in English. "You're all incredible." The boy grinned. "Los hombres malos son estúpidos." Bad men are stupid. "Yes," Elena agreed. "Yes, they are." But she knew Webb wasn't stupid. He was desperate, which was more dangerous. He'd been close to finding her, so close he could probably feel it. And he'd be back just like the old woman said. They always came back. She checked the GPS unit. 62 minutes until rescue forces could reach the emergency beacon's last known position. But she'd turned the beacon off, which meant they'd search the area and find nothing. They'd assume the signal was a mistake, or equipment malfunction, or a dozen other explanations that didn't include Marine captain survived 8,000-foot fall and is hiding in a village. She needed to reactivate the beacon. But if she did, Webb would track it again. She'd be leading him right to her rescue. Unless... "Abuela," Elena said carefully. "Tu nieto, your grandson. How fast can he run?" The old woman's eyes narrowed. "Muy rápido. ¿Por qué?" Very fast. Why Elena held up the GPS unit. "Because I need him to take this and run north, as fast as he can, for as long as he can." Understanding dawned in the old woman's face. "Los hombres malos lo seguirán." The bad men will follow him. "See, away from here, away from you. And when the good soldiers come, they'll find him instead of me." Elena looked at the boy. "Es peligroso." It's dangerous. "Demasiado peligroso para un niño." Too dangerous for a child. The boy straightened, trying to look older than his 10 years. "Puedo hacerlo. I can do it. Conozco estos bosques mejor que nadie. I know these woods better than anyone." "Miguel," the old woman started. "Abuela mataron a papá." Grandmother, they killed Papa. Déjame ayudar. Let me help. The old woman's face crumpled for just a moment. Then it hardened into something fierce. Ve, she said. Go. Pero ten cuidado. But be careful. Mantente adelante de ellos. Stay ahead of them. Y cuando lleguen los buenos soldados. And when the good soldiers come, les doy esto. I give them this. The boy took the GPS unit from Elena, holding it like the precious weapon it was. Y les digo donde está la señora. And I tell them where the lady is. Elena caught his shoulder. Miguel, if they catch you, the bad men, you drop the GPS unit and run. Understand? Don't try to be a hero. Just run. Entiendo. I understand. But his eyes said something different. They said he'd already decided what he was willing to risk. The old woman pressed something into the boy's hand, a small carved figure worn smooth with age. Para suerte, she whispered. For luck. Miguel kissed her cheek, then ran. Elena watched him disappear into the jungle, carrying her only evidence, her only chance at justice, her only hope of rescue. He'll be okay, the old man said from the doorway. His first words since Elena had arrived. He knows paths the bad men don't, shortcuts, hiding places. The jungle raised that boy. I hope you're right, Elena said. Hope is good, the old man replied. But skill is better, and that boy has skill. They waited in tense silence. Elena counted seconds, trying to calculate how far Miguel could get before Webb picked up the beacon signal. The boy had maybe a 3-minute head start. After that, it was speed against pursuit. 10 minutes passed. 15. Then they heard it, the helicopter returning. Searching. They found the signal, Elena said. The old woman nodded. Están siguiendo a Miguel. They're following Miguel. We should go, the old man said. If the bad men come back. No. Elena's voice was firm. You've done enough. More than enough. Help me down to the jungle floor and then go. Hide. I won't let them hurt you for helping me. You cannot walk, the old woman pointed out. You can barely move. Then I'll crawl. I'm good at crawling now, but I won't stay here and make you a target. They argued for maybe 2 minutes before Elena won through sheer stubbornness. The old man and woman helped her down from the stilted structure, supporting her weight between them. At the jungle's edge, the old woman pressed a small bundle into Elena's hands. Comida, she said. Food. Y medicina para el dolor. And medicine for pain. Dios te proteja. God protect you. Gracias. Elena said the word wholly inadequate. For everything. For my life. The old woman touched her face gently. Sobrevive, she said simply. Survive. Esa es la mejor gratitud. That's the best gratitude. They left her at the tree line and disappeared back toward their village. Elena waited until they were gone, then started crawling north again, angling away from Miguel's path but roughly parallel. If the rescue forces found him, if he gave them her location, she needed to be close enough for extraction, but far enough that Webb couldn't use her position to find the boy. The mathematics of survival had become the mathematics of sacrifice. Spread the risk. Make multiple targets. Force the enemy to choose. She heard the helicopter overhead, tracking Miguel's signal. Heard it move north, the sound fading. Good. The boy was leading them away just like they'd planned. But Elena knew Webb, knew how he thought. He'd leave someone behind to watch this area just in case. Patterson probably, or Torres. Someone to verify that Elena wasn't still nearby. She was 100 yards from the village when she heard footsteps behind her. I thought you'd still be close, Torres's voice said. Marcus said you were smart. He was right. Elena rolled onto her back, looking up at him. He stood 10 feet away, rifle aimed at her chest nose, still swollen and broken from where she'd hit him with the rock. Danny, she said, you really going to kill a fellow Marine? I really need the money, he replied. College for my kids. Sophia's already talking about Harvard. You know what Harvard costs, 200 grand over 4 years. Maybe more. So that's your price. your children's education in exchange for my life. Don't make it sound dirty. I'm doing this for my family. You're doing this for yourself, Elena said. You're taking the easy money instead of earning it honestly. And your kids, they'll grow up knowing their college was paid for with blood money. You think that won't affect them? Torres's finger tightened on the trigger. You don't know what it's like. Trying to give your kids everything on a sergeant's salary. Watching them want things you can't provide. Sophia asked me for a new laptop last month and I had to say no because we needed the money for groceries. You know how that feels. I know how it feels to be thrown out of a helicopter by people I trusted, Elena said. I know how it feels to have my bones broken. My body destroyed, my life. Taken all because some men decided money was more important than honor. Honor doesn't pay for college. No, but you sleep better at night. Torres laughed bitterly. You think I'm sleeping? You think any of us are sleeping? We made our choice, and yeah, it was the wrong one. But we're in it now. We're committed. And the only way out is if you're dead and that evidence is destroyed. Miguel's got the evidence, Elena pointed out. Even if you kill me, it survives. We'll catch the kid, and when we do, Torres stopped himself. I don't want to think about that part. Because you know it's wrong. You know what you've become. I know what I have to be to take care of my family. Your family will hate you when the truth comes out. And it will come out, Danny. Maybe not today, maybe not this year, but truth has a way of surfacing. And when it does, when Sophia asks why her father is in prison, what will you tell her? Torres's aim wavered slightly. She'll never know. Nobody will ever know. I know. The boy knows. His grandmother knows. Webb knows. Patterson knows. That's 5 people who have to stay silent forever for your secret to hold. And people talk, Danny, under pressure, under interrogation, under the weight of conscience. People always talk. Then I'd better make sure there's nobody left to talk, Torres said, and his finger moved to squeeze the trigger. The gunshot cracked through the jungle. Torres jerked, stumbled, looked down at the red bloom spreading across his chest. He turned, trying to find the shooter. Miguel stood 20 yards away holding an old hunting rifle almost as big as he was. Smoke drifted from the barrel. Torres tried to raise his weapon. Miguel fired again. The second shot took Torres in the shoulder, spinning him around. He went down hard, gasping. Elena pulled herself to where Torres had fallen. She grabbed his rifle, checked his pulse, still alive but fading fast. Danny, she said, listen to me. You can still do the right thing. Tell me who else is involved. Who in command knew about the cartel money? Give me something good to die on. Blood bubbled on Torres's lips. Nobody else, he managed. Just us 3. Just greed. Just us. Your family. Tell them. He coughed, red spattering. Tell them I loved them. Tell them I was trying to... He didn't finish. His eyes went distant, fixed on something Elena couldn't see. Then nothing. She sat beside his body, breathing hard, trying to process what had just happened. Miguel approached slowly, the rifle still in his hands, his face pale. Tuve que hacerlo, he said, voice shaking. I had to do it. Iba a matarte. He was going to kill you. Lo sé. I know. Elena reached for him, pulled him into an awkward embrace. Gracias, Miguel. Me salvaste la vida. Thank you, Miguel. You saved my life. The boy was crying now, the reality of what he'd done hitting him. He'd killed a man. At 10 years old, he'd taken a life to save a life. That weight would stay with him forever. Escúchame, Elena said, gripping his shoulders. Listen to me. Lo que hiciste. What you did was brave and hard. And I'm sorry you had to do it. But you saved me. Remember that. When it gets hard to remember when you have nightmares, remember that you saved a life. Me van a arrestar? Will they arrest me? No, I won't let that happen. You were defending someone. That's legal. That's right. She checked Torres's equipment, found his radio. Still functional. She could call for help now, bypass the GPS beacon entirely. But if she transmitted, Webb would hear it, would know exactly where she was, unless she could use that. Elena keyed the radio. Webb, this is Reyes. You copy static. Then, Elena, how the hell are you on that frequency? Torres is dead. Miguel shot him. You want to know where I am? Come find me. Just you. No Patterson, no helicopter. Just you and me, Marcus. Let's finish this. You're bluffing. Torres isn't dead. Check your GPS tracker. His signal just stopped moving, didn't it? That's because his heart stopped pumping. He's gone, Marcus. And I've got his weapon, his equipment, and his radio. Want to try for 2 dead partners? Silence. Long enough that Elena thought maybe Webb had cut the connection. Then, where are you? Same place you almost found me. The village. I'm not hiding anymore. I'm done running. You want me dead? Come do it yourself. You're insane. You can barely move. Maybe, but I killed Torres, didn't I? With a 10-year-old's help, sure, but he's dead. So maybe you're not as safe as you think. Another long silence. I'm coming, Webb said finally. And Elena, I'm sorry it has to end this way. I really am. No, you're not. But you will be. She cut the connection and looked at Miguel. Corre, she said. Run. Vuelve a tu abuela. Escóndanse hasta que esto termine. Go back to your grandmother. Hide until this is over. But, por favor, Miguel, I can't protect you if you're here, and I need to know you're safe. Por favor. The boy hesitated, then nodded. He handed her the rifle, 3 rounds left in the chamber, and ran back toward the village. Elena positioned herself at the base of a massive ceiba tree back against the trunk rifle across her lap, Torres's body visible 20 feet away. She'd made herself bait, made herself a target. Now all she had to do was survive what came next. She checked Torres's watch. 45 minutes until rescue forces could reach Miguel's last known position. 45 minutes to stay alive against a man who'd already thrown her out of a helicopter and would happily finish the job. The jungle settled into watchful silence around her, waiting, patient, indifferent to who lived and who died in its shadows. Elena checked the rifle one more time, making sure she understood its function. 3 rounds. She'd have to make them count. She heard movement in the undergrowth. Not Webb, too loud, too careless. An animal probably drawn by the smell of Torres's blood. Then she heard it. The snap of a branch. The rustle of leaves. Someone approaching with tactical precision using cover-checking angles. Webb was coming. And Elena, broken and bleeding and exhausted, would have to kill him or die trying. The mathematics had finally simplified to their purest form, survival of the most determined. She settled the rifle against her shoulder, ignored the screaming protest from her ribs, and waited for Marcus Webb to make his final mistake. Retry TS, Part 2, Louis, Viet 4900, 5900, to liên kết liên mạch với các phần trục trong câu chuyện phá hội thoại, tạo thành một câu chuyện liền mạch khi ghép lại. Mỗi phần liền mạch với phần trước không giới thiệu lại câu chuyện ở đầu phần mới. Liên kết các phần của câu chuyện một cách liền mạch. Sử dụng câu chuyện tiếp giữa các phần. Duy trì chủ đề. Tránh ngắt quãng đột ngột, không sử dụng gạch đầu dòng, hoặc tiêu đề phụ phong cách kể chuyện Mỹ Hoa Kỳ, giống văn giàu cảm xúc chân thực và gần gũi, không mô tả cảnh, tập trung vào hành động, cảm xúc và tâm lý nhân vật. Viết phần 4 đạt điểm 10 và bổ sung tiết tấu câu chuyện nhanh, sửa lỗi AI, kể theo ngôi thứ 3, tăng độ kịch tính, không viết lan man, kết thúc phần, không giới thiệu phần sau. Lưu ý trả lời trong một tin nhắn, không nhảy sang mức document mới. 2-3 phút, cần có mini climax và đặt 10-15 mini climax, mỗi phần cứ 10-12 phút. Có một twist lớn sâu sắc, đan xen mini cliffhanger mạnh hơn. Tăng tính tự nhiên cho phản ứng của các nhân vật, thêm nhịp điệu kịch tính thực tế và gần gũi. Mỗi 8-10 phút, cần có móc giữ chân khán giả. Lưu ý, không mô tả cảnh, và chỉ cần viết nội dung và viết đúng lên nhé. Show more. The movement came from her left, a shadow shifting between trees 40 yards out. Elena tracked it through the rifle's iron sights, finger resting beside the trigger. Not on it. Not yet. She had 3 rounds, and Webb had full tactical gear body armor, probably night vision, even though dawn was breaking. She needed to make every shot count. The shadow disappeared behind a thick trunk. Elena waited, controlling her breathing despite the pain radiating from her ribs. Webb was good. 7 years of special operations made him better than good. He'd approach from an unexpected angle, use terrain to his advantage, exploit her injuries. But Elena had something he didn't. She had nothing left to lose. "I know you're watching," Webb's voice carried from somewhere to her right. Not where the shadow had been. He was already repositioning, keeping her guessing. "Torres's body. Good choice for bait. Very tactical." Elena stayed silent. Let him talk. Every word gave her information, direction, distance, emotional state. "You know what the funny thing is?" Webb continued, voice moving again, circling. "I actually liked you, Elena. Respected you. You were the best intelligence officer I'd worked with. Sharp, dedicated, incorruptible." He laughed, bitter. "That last part was the problem. You couldn't be bought, couldn't be compromised, couldn't be convinced to look the other way. The cartel tried, you know. Before they approached me, they offered you money first." Elena's jaw clenched. She hadn't known that. Hadn't known the cartel had marked her as a target before the betrayal. "You turned them down flat," Webb said. "Reported the contact immediately. By the book. So they came to me with a different offer: remove you, keep the routes open. Everyone profits. $200,000 to throw you out of a helicopter. Easiest money I never earned." "Never earned," Elena called back, immediately regretting breaking silence but needing to know. "You survived the fall. That wasn't supposed to happen. Nobody survives an 8,000-foot drop. The math doesn't work. But you did it anyway because apparently you're too stubborn to die." His voice hardened. "Which means I haven't earned the money until you're actually dead." Movement again, this time closer, maybe 30 yards. Elena swung the rifle toward it but held fire. Could be Webb. Could be a decoy, something he'd thrown to draw her shot. "Torres had kids," she said, making him react to her voice for a change. "Sophia and Miguel. You remember them? His daughter wanted to go to Harvard." "I remember. He died thinking about them, trying to justify murdering me so he could pay for their education. You think that money's worth it, Marcus? You think his kids will thank him when they learn their father was killed committing murder for hire?" "They'll never know," Webb replied. "Clean it up, right? Torres died in action. Hostile engagement. Military honors, full benefits. His family will be taken care of. By lying to them, by building their future on a foundation of blood. Better than building it on nothing." Webb's voice shifted again, circling left now. "You grew up comfortable, Elena. Your dad was a professor. Your mom was a doctor. You had everything you needed. Some of us grew up different. Some of us know what it's like to wear clothes from Goodwill and eat ramen for dinner because that's all we could afford. So you sold your soul for a house upgrade. I sold my willingness to look the other way for my daughter's future. There's a difference." Elena spotted him. Just a glimpse, silhouette against the dawn light, moving between trees at her 2 o'clock. She didn't shoot. Not yet. He was too far, too mobile, and she couldn't waste ammunition on a low-percentage shot. "Where's Patterson?" she asked, trying to pin down Webb's position through conversation. "Safe. Watching the extraction point where your rescue beacon activated. When your people arrive, he'll observe, report, and disappear. Professional to the end." "So it's just you and me." "Just you and me," Webb agreed. "Like it should have been from the start. I should have done this myself instead of outsourcing to gravity." He was closer now. 25 yards, moving carefully, using cover. Elena could track him by the slight disturbances in the undergrowth, the way birds went silent as he passed. "You really think you can kill me, Elena? In your condition, broken legs, probably internal bleeding, running on adrenaline and painkillers. You're barely conscious." "I'm conscious enough." She shifted the rifle slightly, tracking his movement. "Conscious enough to know you're approaching from the east, using that fallen log for cover, probably planning to flank left where the terrain drops off." Webb went still. She'd guessed right. "See, Marcus, I studied these jungles for 2 years. Every ridge, every depression, every line of sight. I know this ground better than you do. Which means even with broken legs, even dying, I've got the advantage." Big words from someone who can't walk. Don't need to walk to shoot. Silence. Long enough that Elena wondered if he was repositioning or preparing to rush her. Then his voice came from a completely different direction behind her north side. "You're right about one thing. You do know this terrain. But I've got something you don't." Elena heard the click of a radio mic. Webb's voice came through Torres's radio, still clipped to her vest, and from the jungle, simultaneously stereo sound showing he was exactly where she'd thought, east side, despite the voice tricks. "Patterson, execute contingency Bravo." The radio crackled. "Confirm Bravo. Target is the village." Elena's blood went cold. "Confirmed," Webb said. "Light it up." "No," Elena shouted. "Marcus, don't." "You should have stayed dead," Webb said. "But you involved civilians. That old woman, her grandson. They saw too much, know too much. Contingency Bravo was always the plan if things went sideways." Elena heard the helicopter in the distance growing louder. Patterson was bringing it in for a strike on the village, on Miguel and his grandmother, on people who'd saved her life. "They don't know anything," Elena said desperately. "They're just villagers. They don't even know who I am." "They know enough, and I can't leave loose ends." The helicopter was getting closer. Elena made a decision. She triggered Torres's radio broadcasting on all channels. "Any Colombian or American forces, this is Captain Elena Reyes, Marine Corps Intelligence. Grid coordinates." She rattled off the village location from memory. Civilians in immediate danger. American helicopter pilot about to engage non-hostiles. This is a war crime in progress. I repeat, war crime in progress. "Jesus Christ, Elena," Webb snarled. "You just signed those people's death warrant. Now I have to kill them to cover up what you just broadcast. Or you could let them live and turn yourself in. It's over, Marcus. Too many people know. Torres is dead. Patterson's about to commit a war crime on an open frequency. Command is probably already scrambling a response. You're done." "Not until you're dead." He rushed her position. Not from where she'd tracked him, but from behind he must have circled while she was distracted with the radio call. Elena tried to turn to bring the rifle around, but her broken body couldn't move fast enough. Webb hit her like a linebacker, driving her away from the tree, sending the rifle flying. They went down in a tangle, and Elena felt something in her chest crack another rib, maybe two. She couldn't breathe, couldn't think through the pain. Webb's hands found her throat. "Should have made this clean," he said, face inches from hers. "Quick bullet professional job. But you had to make it personal. You had to involve innocence. So now I'm going to watch you die slow." Elena clawed at his hands, but she had no leverage, no strength left. Her vision started to darken at the edges. She could hear the helicopter directly overhead, now preparing to strike the village. She thought about Miguel, about his grandmother, about how they'd saved her life, and she'd repaid them by bringing death to their door. Her hand found something on Webb's vest, a grenade. Fragmentation-type safety pin still in place. She pulled the pin. Webb's eyes went wide. "What did you—" Elena shoved the grenade between their bodies and wrapped her arms around him, holding him close. "If I die, you die with me." "You're insane," Webb breathed, releasing her throat, trying to push away. But Elena held on with the last of her strength. 3-second fuse. Maybe 2 seconds left. "Let go!" Webb shouted. "Not a chance." 1 second. Webb finally broke her grip and threw himself backward. The grenade detonated between them, the blast wave lifting Elena and slamming her into the ceiba tree. The world went white, then red, then black around the edges. When her hearing returned, it came with a high-pitched ringing. She tasted blood and cordite. Her body felt wrong, disconnected, like it belonged to someone else. Webb lay 10 feet away, not moving. The grenade had caught him worse than her. His body armor had concentrated the blast inward instead of dispersing it. She could see his chest rising and falling shallowly. Still alive, but barely. Elena tried to move and screamed. The blast had done something catastrophic to her already broken body. But she was alive. Still alive. The helicopter. She had to stop Patterson. She dragged herself toward Torres's body, toward his rifle. Every inch was agony. Her vision blurred. She couldn't feel her legs anymore, which was probably a blessing. The rifle was 5 feet away, might as well have been 5 miles. She heard the helicopter's weapon systems powering up. Patterson was about to fire on the village. Elena's hand closed on the rifle. She rolled onto her back, brought the weapon up, and aimed at the sky. The helicopter was maybe 200 feet up, preparing for its attack run. Impossible shot with a rifle. Impossible odds. But Elena had been beating impossible odds all night. She fired. The first round missed. She adjusted, fired again. The second round sparked off the helicopter's fuselage. Patterson banked hard, surprised by ground fire. 1 round left. Elena tracked the helicopter as it turned, searching for her position. She could see Patterson in the cockpit, could see him spotting her on the ground. The helicopter's nose dipped machine gun turret rotating toward her. She fired her last round. The bullet punched through the cockpit canopy and caught Patterson in the shoulder. Not a kill shot, but enough. The helicopter lurched, Patterson losing control, the aircraft spinning as he fought to keep it airborne. The helicopter crashed into the jungle canopy 50 yards from Elena's position, rotors shearing off in a shower of debris. It hit the ground hard, rolled once, and came to rest on its side. Silence. Absolute silence except for the ringing in Elena's ears. She let the rifle fall from her hands. Nothing left. No ammunition, no strength, no options. If Patterson crawled out of that wreckage with a weapon, she couldn't stop him. But he didn't emerge. The helicopter lay still, smoke beginning to rise from its engine compartment. Elena heard running footsteps. Multiple people. She tried to raise her hands in surrender, but her arms wouldn't respond. Colombian soldiers appeared through the trees, weapons ready. Behind them, American Marines in full battle gear. And in the middle of them all, Miguel, pointing at Elena, shouting, "Ahí está. There she is." A medic reached her first, taking in her injuries with professional horror. "Jesus Christ, ma'am, how are you even conscious?" "Stubbornness," Elena managed. "Check Webb. Over there, and Patterson in the helicopter. They're both still alive. Need them alive. Evidence. Trial." "Ma'am, you need to stop talking. You need to—" "The GPS unit," Elena interrupted. "Miguel has it. Recording of everything. Webb's confession. All of it. Evidence." "We've got it, ma'am. The boy gave it to us. Just try to stay calm." "Can't," Elena said, and she realized she was crying. "Can't calm down. Have to make sure they pay. Torres is dead. Over there. He was going to kill me, but Miguel shot him. Miguel saved my life. Can't let him get in trouble for that. He saved me." "Nobody's getting in trouble," the medic said, working on her injuries with quick efficiency. "Just breathe, Captain. Help is here. You're safe now." Safe. The word seemed impossible. How could she be safe when her body was destroyed, when her friends had betrayed her, when she'd nearly died a dozen different ways in the past few hours? But she was alive. Against every odd, every calculation, every reasonable expectation, she was alive. Major Harrison appeared above her, his face grim. "Reyes. Jesus Christ. Reyes." "Sir," she tried to say, but it came out as a whisper. "Don't talk. Just listen. We got your transmission. The whole thing. Webb's confession, the war crime attempt, everything. Patterson's under arrest. Webb will be when he wakes up. If he wakes up. Torres," Elena managed. "Dead. We found the body. The boy told us what happened. Self-defense clear as day. He's not in any trouble." Elena felt something release in her chest. Miguel was safe. The evidence was secure. Webb and Patterson would face justice. Torres was dead, but his family would know the truth eventually. Maybe that was its own kind of justice. "The fall," Harrison said, shaking his head. 8,000 feet. How the hell did you survive an 8,000-foot fall?" "Physics," Elena whispered. "And the river, and refusing to die. That's not an answer." "It's the only answer I've got, sir." More medics arrived with a stretcher. They lifted her carefully, but carefully wasn't careful enough. She screamed, vision going white with pain. "Morphine," someone said. "Can't," Elena gasped. "Need to stay awake. Need to give testimony. You need to shut up and let us save your life," the medic said, not unkindly. "The testimony can wait. Right now you're bleeding internally, you've got multiple fractures, possible spinal damage, and you're in shock. So, with all due respect, Captain, close your eyes and let us work." The morphine hit her system like a warm wave. The pain retreated to something distant and manageable. Elena felt herself floating, disconnected from her ruined body. "Miguel," she said as they carried her toward the extraction point. Need to thank him, and his grandmother. They saved me. They're here, Harrison said, walking beside the stretcher. They insisted on staying until they saw you were safe. Elena turned her head, even that small movement was agony, and saw them standing at the jungle's edge. Miguel held his grandmother's hand, both of them watching as the soldiers carried Elena away. She raised one hand slightly, a wave, a thank you, a goodbye. Miguel waved back, and even from a distance, Elena could see him crying. He's 10 years old, she told Harrison, and he killed a man to save my life. Make sure someone talks to him. Make sure he gets help processing that, please, sir. I'll handle it personally, Harrison promised. They reached the landing zone where a medevac helicopter waited, rotors already spinning. As they loaded her aboard, Elena caught sight of Webb being carried on another stretcher. His eyes were open, staring at nothing, his breathing labored. Their stretchers passed within a few feet of each other. Webb's eyes found hers. You should be dead, he said, voice barely audible. Yeah, Elena agreed. I really should be. How? I wanted to live more than you wanted me dead. That's how. Webb's eyes closed. My daughters will learn the truth about all of it, and they'll have to live with what you did. That's on you, Marcus, not me. The medevac lifted off, carrying Elena up into the dawn sky. She watched the jungle fall away below her. The same jungle that had nearly killed her, that had hidden her enemies and her saviors, that had witnessed her impossible survival. The medic worked on her injuries, calling out vitals, making adjustments. Elena heard the words, critical condition, and miracle she's alive, and never seen anyone survive this much trauma. But she was only half listening. Her mind was already moving forward past the pain and the betrayal and the horror, moving toward what came next, the investigation, the trial, the testimony. Webb and Patterson would face military justice, and Elena would make sure her voice was heard. Torres's family deserved to know the truth. The cartel connections needed to be exposed. The corruption needed to be burned out. And Miguel, she'd make sure Miguel got the help he needed, the recognition he deserved. He'd saved her life at the cost of his innocence. She owed him everything. Hang on, Captain, the medic said. We're 20 minutes from the hospital. Just hang on. Not going anywhere, Elena replied. Hung on this long, not quitting now. She closed her eyes, letting the morphine and exhaustion pull her under. But before she went completely dark, she thought about the moment Webb had shoved her out of the helicopter. That terrible, weightless instant when she'd thought her life was over. She'd been wrong. Her life hadn't ended in that fall. It had just entered a new phase. One where she understood exactly how much she could survive, how far she could push, how much pain she could endure, and still keep fighting. Webb had thrown her from a helicopter, thinking it would kill her. Instead, he'd taught her something invaluable. She was unbreakable. The helicopter banked toward the hospital, carrying Elena toward surgery and recovery, and whatever came after. Behind them, the jungle reclaimed its silence. The sun rose over the canopy, painting everything gold. And deep in the trees, Miguel stood with his grandmother, watching the helicopter disappear. He held the carved figure she'd given him for luck, worn smooth by generations of hands, and wondered if the American woman would remember him when she recovered. She would. Elena would make sure of it, because some debts could never be repaid, only honored. And Miguel had earned more honor in one night than most people earned in a lifetime. The old woman squeezed her grandson's hand. Ella vivirá, she said. She will live. Es una guerrera. She's a warrior. Como papá? Miguel asked. Like papa, mejor, the old woman replied. Better. Porque ella lucha no solo por sí misma, sino por lo correcto. Because she fights not just for herself, but for what's right. Esa es la diferencia entre un soldado y un guerrero. That's the difference between a soldier and a warrior. They turned and walked back toward their village, leaving the Americans to their justice and their wars. They'd done what they could. Saved one life, taken one life, changed everything. And in the end, maybe that was enough. Elena woke to white ceiling tiles and the steady beep of monitors. Her body felt distant, wrapped in pharmaceutical fog, but the pain was there underneath everything, a constant throb that no amount of medication could fully suppress. She tried to move her right hand and managed maybe an inch before exhaustion hit. Easy! A nurse appeared in her field of vision, adjusting something on the IV stand. You've been out for 18 hours. Major surgery on both legs, your shoulder, and they had to repair internal bleeding. Doctor said you've got the pain tolerance of a stone. Elena's throat was dry. Water, she managed. The nurse held a cup with a straw to her lips. The water tasted like metal and mercy. Elena drank slowly, letting her mind catch up with her body. Hospital, surgery. She'd survived. Again. Where am I? Bogota, military hospital. You've got about 20 people waiting to talk to you. Investigators, command staff, even someone from JAG. They're being very patient, but very insistent. Webb, Elena asked. Patterson. The nurse's expression tightened. Both survived. Both under guard in different wings. I'm not supposed to tell you that, but I figure you earned the right to know. Elena closed her eyes. Good. They'd survived to face trial. Torres was dead, but 2 out of 3 would answer for what they'd done. It would have to be enough. There's someone else who's been waiting, the nurse said, gentler now. A boy, Miguel. He's been sitting in the hallway for 6 hours. His grandmother, too. Should I? Yes, Elena said immediately. Please. The nurse left and returned moments later with Miguel and his grandmother. The boy looked smaller, somehow younger, his eyes carrying a weight no 10-year-old should bear. He stopped just inside the door, uncertain. Ven aquí, Elena said. Come here. Miguel approached the bed slowly. His grandmother stayed near the door, watching with those sharp eyes that missed nothing. Estás viva, Miguel whispered. You're alive. Gracias a ti, Elena replied. Thanks to you. She switched to English, needing him to understand every word. You saved my life, Miguel. More than once. You're the bravest person I've ever met. I killed a man, Miguel said, and his voice cracked. I shot him, and he died, and I can still see his face when I close my eyes. Elena reached for his hand with her functioning arm. I know that's going to stay with you. But listen to me. What you did was right. Torres was going to kill me. You protected someone who couldn't protect herself. That's not murder, Miguel. That's courage. It doesn't feel like courage. No, it feels terrible. It feels wrong even though it was right. That's how you know you're a good person. It bothers you. Bad people don't lose sleep over the lives they take. Good people carry that weight forever. And I'm sorry you have to carry it. Miguel was crying now, quiet tears running down his face. His grandmother moved to his side, putting her hand on his shoulder. Mi nieto es un héroe, she said. My grandson is a hero. Pero es difícil ser un héroe. But it's hard to be a hero. Yes, Elena agreed. It's the hardest thing there is. She looked at the old woman. You saved me too. The medicine, the hiding, everything. I don't know how to thank you. The old woman waved a hand dismissively. No necesitas agradecer. Mi hijo habría hecho lo mismo. You don't need to thank me. My son would have done the same. She paused. Los hombres malos que mataron a mi hijo están muertos ahora. The bad men who killed my son. Are they dead now? Elena understood she wasn't asking about Webb's team. She was asking about the cartel. No, not yet. But I'm going to make sure they pay. That's a promise. The old woman nodded slowly. Bueno. La justicia llega lentamente, pero llega. Good. Justice comes slowly, but it comes. Major Harrison appeared in the doorway. Captain Reyes, I need to... He stopped seeing Miguel and his grandmother. I'm sorry, I can come back. No, sir. I want them to stay. They deserve to hear whatever you're going to tell me. Harrison looked uncomfortable but nodded. He pulled up a chair. First, your medical status. The doctors say you'll recover, but it's going to be a long process. Your left ankle was essentially destroyed. They've reconstructed it, but you're looking at multiple surgeries and probably a permanent limp. Your right knee is better, but still damaged. Shoulders repairable, ribs will heal. Internal injuries were extensive, but they got them all. Will I walk again, sir? Eventually. But your field career is over, Elena. You'll never pass a physical fitness test again, not with these injuries. She'd expected that, but hearing it still hurt. 7 years of her life dedicated to field operations, to being the best at what she did, and now it was finished. Webb hadn't killed her, but he'd killed that part of her life just as effectively. Second, Harrison continued. The investigation. We've recovered the GPS recording. Webb's confession is crystal clear. Combined with Patterson's attempted war crime and Torres's actions, we have an airtight case. JAG is preparing charges: conspiracy, attempted murder, corruption, weapons trafficking, facilitation, assault. Both Webb and Patterson are looking at life in military prison. What about Torres's family? Elena asked. Do they know? Harrison's expression darkened. They've been notified of his death. We've told them he died in hostile action, but that details are classified pending investigation. Eventually, they'll learn the truth. I don't envy the notification officer who has to deliver that conversation. I want to do it, Elena said. When I'm able to travel, I want to be the one who tells them. Elena. Sir Torres died because of choices he made, but his kids don't deserve to hear their father was a traitor from a stranger. They deserve to hear it from someone who was there. Someone who can tell them he thought about them at the end. Harrison studied her for a long moment. You're a better person than I am, Captain. Most people would want nothing to do with the families. I'm not most people, sir. No, you're really not. He pulled out a folder. Third item, the cartel. We've identified the lieutenant who hired Webb, a man named Esteban Morales. Works directly under one of the major cartel bosses. Intelligence is tracking his network, now building a case. Your testimony will be crucial. I'll give you everything I have, Elena said. Every contact, every route, every piece of intelligence I've gathered over 2 years. I want them destroyed, sir. All of them. That's going to take time, and political will, and resources we may not have. Then we better get creative. Elena looked at Miguel's grandmother. These people have been terrorizing villages for years, taking their children, destroying their lives. It ends. One way or another, it ends. Harrison nodded slowly. I'll see what I can do. Which brings me to the fourth and final item. He pulled out another folder, this one thicker. Your future. Command recognizes that you can no longer serve in a field capacity, but your intelligence background, your language skills, your understanding of cartel operations, that's valuable. Very valuable. We'd like to offer you a position stateside. Analysis, training, strategy development. You'd be working with raw intelligence, helping field teams understand the terrain and the enemy. A desk job, Elena said flatly. A vital job. Your experience can save lives, Elena. Maybe more lives than you saved in the field. She wanted to argue, wanted to say she wasn't done, that she could still operate. That 7 years of field work shouldn't end because 3 traitors had tried to kill her. But her body knew the truth, even if her pride didn't. She was broken. Not unfixable, but never the same. Can I think about it, sir? Take all the time you need. The offer stands. Harrison stood. One more thing. There's a reporter outside. From the Washington Post. Somebody leaked the story. Marine captain survives. 8,000-foot fall exposes corruption. Brings down traitors. It's going to be news, Elena. Big news. You can decline to comment, but the story's getting out regardless. Elena felt her stomach drop. She'd never wanted attention, had spent her career in the shadows doing the work that mattered without recognition. Now she was going to be famous for surviving betrayal and murder. It felt wrong somehow. Torres was dead. Miguel had killed a man at 10 years old. An entire village had risked cartel retaliation to save her, and she was going to be the story. I'll talk to them, she said finally. But I want Miguel and his grandmother included. They're the real heroes here, not me. Harrison smiled slightly. I had a feeling you'd say that. I'll let the reporter know. He left, and Elena was alone with Miguel and his grandmother again. The boy had stopped crying, but his eyes still carried that terrible weight. "They're going to want to talk to you," Elena told him. "Reporters, investigators, maybe even people making documentaries. They're going to call you a hero and ask you how it felt to save my life. And every time they ask, you're going to remember what it cost. I'm sorry for that. I'm sorry you're going to have to relive it over and over." "Will it get easier?" Miguel asked. Elena thought about the question, about all the things she'd done in 7 years of operations, the calls she'd made, the risks she'd taken, the people who'd died because of decisions she'd authorized. It never got easier. You just got better at carrying the weight. "No," she said honestly. "It won't get easier, but you'll get stronger, strong enough to carry it. And whenever it gets too heavy, you remember why you did it. You saved a life. That matters more than anything else." Miguel nodded, not really understanding yet, but trusting her word. His grandmother squeezed his shoulder. "Debemos irnos," she said. "We should go. Ella necesita descansar. She needs rest." "Wait," Elena said. "One more thing." She looked at Harrison's retreating form. "Sir Major Harrison." He turned back. "Yes, Captain. Miguel and his grandmother. They're going to need protection. The cartel will learn they helped me. They'll be targets." Harrison's expression showed he'd already considered this. Already arranged. "We've got a team providing security for their village, and we're working with Colombian authorities on a more permanent solution. Possibly relocation with new identities if necessary." "No," the old woman said firmly. "No, nos iremos. We won't leave. Esa es nuestra tierra. That's our land. No dejaremos que los hombres del cartel nos asusten. We won't let the cartel men scare us away." "Abuela," Miguel started. "No," her voice was steel. "Nos quedamos y luchamos. We stay, and we fight." Elena saw herself in the old woman's eyes, that same refusal to back down, to give ground, to let evil win through fear. "Then I'll make sure you have support," she promised. "Protection, resources, whatever you need. The cartel wants to make you afraid. We'll make them afraid instead." Harrison looked like he wanted to object but held his tongue. "We'll discuss the details later. For now, Captain Reyes needs rest." Miguel and his grandmother left, but not before Miguel squeezed Elena's hand one more time. "Gracias," he whispered, "por hacerme sentir valiente. For making me feel brave." "You are brave," Elena replied. "Don't ever forget that." When they were gone, Elena closed her eyes and let exhaustion pull her under. But sleep didn't bring peace. It brought dreams of falling of Webb's hands, shoving her into darkness, of the river's impact, of Torres bleeding out in the jungle. She woke gasping several times, nurses rushing to her side, assuring her she was safe. But she didn't feel safe. Wouldn't feel safe for a long time. Maybe never again. 3 days passed. Physical therapy started, immediately painful, frustrating sessions, where Elena relearned how to move her reconstructed legs. Every step was agony. Every small victory felt hollow because she knew what she'd lost. But she pushed through because quitting wasn't in her vocabulary. The investigator came on day 4. A colonel named Morrison from JAG, carrying a briefcase full of evidence and questions. She was thorough, professional, and relentless. Elena answered every question, provided every detail, relived the entire nightmare from briefing room to hospital bed. "Your testimony is going to convict them," Morrison said at the end of the 6-hour session. "Webb's lawyers are already trying to negotiate a plea deal. They know they've got nothing." "No deal," Elena said immediately. "They go to trial. Full court-martial. Every detail made public. No backroom deals, no reduced sentences. They tried to kill a fellow Marine for drug money. They face the consequences." Morrison smiled grimly. "That's what I told them you'd say. Just wanted to confirm." She closed her briefcase. "One more thing. Webb wants to talk to you, face to face. He's claiming he has information about the cartel that he'll only share with you directly." "It's a trap or a manipulation," Elena said. "He wants to get in my head, make me doubt, or maybe just apologize to assuage his guilt." "Probably. But the offer's there if you want to take it." Elena thought about it. Part of her wanted to face Webb, to make him look at what he'd done to her, to show him she'd survived despite his best efforts. But another part knew that giving him that satisfaction was letting him win in a small way. No, she decided. Tell him I've got nothing to say to him. If he wants to share intelligence, he can do it through proper channels. I'm not his confessor. Morrison nodded approvingly. Smart. Don't give him any power over you. She stood to leave, then paused. Captain, what you did surviving that fall, taking down 3 armed operators with broken legs, saving those civilians, it's going to be studied in survival schools for decades. You've redefined what's possible. I got lucky, Elena said. Luck had nothing to do with it. You made 1,000 small decisions, every one of them right in conditions that would have killed anyone else. That's not luck. That's excellence under pressure. Morrison smiled. You're going to have opportunities when you recover. Speaking tours, consulting training positions. The world wants to know how you did what you did. The world can wait until I figure out how to walk without wanting to scream. Fair enough. The reporter came on day 7. A woman named Sarah Chen from the Post Sharp Eyes and a recorder that she asked permission to use. Elena agreed, but insisted Miguel and his grandmother be present for the interview. Tell me about the fall, Chen said after the preliminaries. What goes through your mind when you're thrown from a helicopter at 8,000 feet? Elena glanced at Miguel, who was listening intently. Training. You default to your training. I knew the physics of terminal velocity, knew that water entry was my only chance. So I stopped thinking about dying and started thinking about surviving. But most people would panic. Most people haven't spent 7 years preparing for worst-case scenarios. The Marine Corps doesn't teach you to give up just because the odds are bad. They teach you to find the solution that exists and execute it perfectly. Chen scribbled notes. And when you hit the water, it felt like hitting concrete. Everything broke. But I was alive, which meant I still had a chance. So I focused on the next thing, getting to shore. Then the next thing after that. You don't survive by thinking about the whole journey. You survive by taking it one impossible step at a time. You were betrayed by your own team. How do you process that? Elena was quiet for a moment. That's the part that hurts most. The physical injuries will heal, but knowing that people I trusted, people I served with, decided I was worth less than drug money, that's going to stay with me. It changes how you see the world. Do you think you'll ever trust again? I trust Miguel, Elena said, gesturing to the boy. I trust his grandmother. They had no reason to help me, and every reason to turn me over to the cartel or Webb's team. But they chose to do what was right. So yes, I'll trust again, but I'll be more careful about who deserves it. Chen turned to Miguel. What was going through your mind when you shot Sergeant Torres? The boy looked at his grandmother, who nodded permission to answer. I was scared, Miguel said in careful English. But the señora was going to die. And my papa taught me that sometimes being scared doesn't matter. Sometimes you have to do the hard thing because it's the right thing. Your father was killed by the cartel. Yes, 3 years ago. Because he wouldn't help them. Miguel's voice was steady, but Elena saw his hands shaking. He said no when bad men told him to say yes. The señora reminds me of him. She also says no to bad men. Chen's eyes were wet. You're very brave. That's what everyone says. But I don't feel brave. I feel sad and scared and wrong inside. That's because you're a good person, Elena said quietly. Bad people don't feel that way. The interview continued for another hour. Chen asked about the injuries, the recovery, the future. Elena answered honestly about the pain, the uncertainty, the knowledge that her field career was finished. She talked about the cartel, about corruption, about the cost of doing what's right in a world that often rewards what's wrong. When Chen finally turned off her recorder, she looked at Elena with something like awe. This is going to be front page. Possibly Pulitzer material. People need to hear this story. People need to hear about more than just me, Elena said. They need to hear about Miguel, about his grandmother, about the villages terrorized by cartels and the corruption that enables it. Make sure you tell the whole story, not just the dramatic parts. I will, Chen promised. I absolutely will. After she left, Elena was alone with her thoughts again. The physical therapy continued brutal and unforgiving. Every day brought marginal improvement, a few more steps, a little less pain, slightly better range of motion. But the progress felt too slow, too insufficient. 2 weeks after the fall, Elena took her first steps without crutches. 20 feet across the hospital room, every step a negotiation between determination and agony. When she reached the opposite wall, she turned and looked back at the distance she'd covered. 20 feet. It felt like 20 miles. Her physical therapist, a stern woman named Rodriguez, nodded approval. Good. Tomorrow we do 30 feet. Tomorrow I do 50, Elena said. Captain, you need to respect the healing process. I respected the healing process when I dragged myself 40 miles through hostile jungle with 2 broken legs. I think I've earned the right to push a little harder. Rodriguez smiled despite herself. You're a terrible patient, but fine. 50 feet tomorrow. But if you re-injure yourself, the doctors are going to kill me. Better you than me. That night, Elena couldn't sleep. The pain medication made her drowsy, but not unconscious, leaving her in a twilight state where memories and reality blurred together. She kept seeing Webb's face as he shoved her from the helicopter, kept feeling the weightless terror of freefall, kept hearing Torres's last words, "Tell them I love them." She got out of bed with difficulty and stood at the window looking out at Bogota's lights. Somewhere in this city, Webb was in a hospital bed under guard waiting for court-martial. Patterson was in another wing, probably plotting his defense. The cartel lieutenant who'd paid them was still free, still operating, still destroying lives. The story wasn't over. This was just one chapter. Elena's phone returned to her 2 days ago, buzzed with a text message. Unknown number. She almost deleted it unread, but something made her open it. The message was in Spanish. You took something from us. We will take something from you. This is not over. Her blood went cold. The cartel. They'd found her number, were making threats. She should report it immediately, let security handle it. Instead, she typed back, I'm counting on it. Come find me. Let's finish what you started. She hit send before she could second-guess herself. 3 dots appeared showing the sender was typing. Then, bold words from a woman who can barely walk. But we're patient. Recovery takes time. We'll wait. Elena smiled, the expression sharp and cold. Take all the time you need. I'll be ready. The conversation ended. Elena saved the number and forwarded everything to Major Harrison with a brief note. Cartel made contact. Keep this between us for now. I have a plan. She returned to bed, but sleep was impossible now. Her mind was already working, planning, calculating. Webb and Patterson would go to prison. Torres was dead. But the cartel remained thinking they'd won, because they'd survived. They were wrong. Elena had fallen 8,000 feet and lived, had survived betrayal, combat, and impossible odds. The cartel thought they were hunting a broken Marine captain. They were about to learn they'd created something much more dangerous, a woman with nothing left to lose and everything left to prove. The resolution of Webb's betrayal was just beginning. The real war, the one against the cartel, was about to start. And this time, Elena wasn't going to be the one falling. Harrison arrived at Elena's hospital room 30 minutes after receiving her forwarded text messages. He found her dressed in physical therapy clothes, doing leg exercises that clearly caused her pain, but which she refused to stop. You threatened a cartel operative, Harrison said without preamble. Have you lost your mind? No, sir. I've gained clarity. Elena lowered her legs slowly, breathing through the burn. They think I'm broken, helpless, an easy target once I'm discharged. I'm going to use that. Use it how you can barely walk. Your field career is over. My legs are damaged, sir. My mind isn't. And neither is my will. She met his eyes. The cartel paid Webb to kill me because I was closing their routes, disrupting their operations. They thought eliminating me would solve their problem. Instead, I survived. And now I know exactly who they are and how they operate. That makes me more dangerous than before, not less. Harrison pulled up a chair, his expression troubled. Elena, I understand the desire for revenge. This isn't revenge, it's justice. She started the next exercise, gritting her teeth against the pain. Torres is dead. Webb and Patterson will spend life in prison. But the cartel that paid them, they're still operating, still recruiting corrupt soldiers, still destroying villages like Miguel's. If we don't stop them, everything we went through means nothing. Command won't approve active operations. I'm not asking for active operations. I'm asking for intelligence support. Elena stopped exercising and leaned forward. Sir, I've got 2 years of operational knowledge about their networks. I speak Spanish. I understand the terrain. And now they've made contact, which means I can feed them disinformation, track their communications, maybe even identify their leadership. You want to run a counterintelligence operation from a hospital bed. Until I can run it from somewhere more effective, yes. Harrison was quiet for a long moment. This is insane. This is necessary. Sir, they threatened me. That means they're scared. Scared people make mistakes. I want to capitalize on those mistakes before they regroup and realize I'm not actually a threat in my current condition. But you are a threat, even like this. Harrison shook his head, almost smiling. You're absolutely a threat. Fine, I'll talk to intelligence. But this goes through proper channels. No cowboy operations, no unnecessary risks. You've already nearly died once for this job. Twice, sir. Don't forget the grenade. How could I forget the grenade? Harrison stood. One more thing. Webb's court-martial has been scheduled. 3 months from now. You'll need to testify. I'll be there, even if I have to crawl to the witness stand. I don't doubt it for a second. After Harrison left, Elena returned to her exercises with renewed focus. Every step was preparation. Every hour of recovery was training for what came next. The cartel thought they'd broken her. She'd show them what broken really looked like. The Washington Post article came out 2 days later. Front page above the fold, with a photo of Elena in her hospital bed, flanked by Miguel and his grandmother. The headline read, Marine Captain Survives 8,000-Foot Fall, Exposes Corruption Becomes Symbol of Unbreakable Will. Elena read it on her phone, wincing at some of Chen's more dramatic language, but appreciating that she'd kept her promise to tell the full story. Miguel's bravery was prominently featured. His grandmother's strength was honored. The cartel's role in corrupting American soldiers was laid bare. By afternoon, the story had gone viral. News networks were calling. Talk shows wanted interviews. Publishers were offering book deals. Elena declined them all. I don't understand, her sister Maria said during a video call that evening. This is your chance to tell your story, to become famous, to make money from what you went through. I don't want to be famous, Elena replied. I want the cartel destroyed. Fame just makes that harder. You're impossible. But Maria was smiling, tears in her eyes. When you first went missing, when they told us you'd fallen from a helicopter, I thought you were dead. I'd already started planning your funeral. And then you showed up alive, barely, but alive. How do you keep doing this? Doing what? Surviving, against impossible odds, making the hard choice look easy. Elena thought about that. It's not easy. Nothing about this is easy. But the alternative is giving up, and I don't know how to do that. Dad taught us that, remember? When his Alzheimer's diagnosis came and everyone said he should retire, stop teaching, stop researching, he said no. He said he'd keep working until his mind wouldn't let him anymore. How is Dad? Maria asked quietly. The same. Some days he knows me. Some days he doesn't. But he's still fighting. Elena's throat tightened. I need to visit him when I get stateside. Need him to see me walking. Need to prove that his daughter inherited his stubbornness. He'll be so proud, even if he doesn't remember why. They talked for another hour, catching up on family news, carefully avoiding the trauma of the past few weeks. When the call ended, Elena felt both better and worse. Connected to her life before all this, but also aware of how much distance the experience had created. She wasn't the same person who'd boarded that helicopter, wasn't sure she'd ever be that person again. Miguel visited the next day with news that changed everything. He arrived breathless, his grandmother trailing behind, looking worried. Señora los hombres del cartel, he said urgently. Lady, the cartel men. Vinieron al pueblo. They came to the village. Elena's blood went cold. When? Anoche. Last night. Preguntaron por ti. Preguntaron por mí. They asked about you. They asked about me. Did they hurt anyone? No, but amenazaron. They threatened. Dijeron que si ayudamos a los americanos otra vez. They said if we help the Americans again, he couldn't finish. Elena looked at his grandmother. You need protection. Relocation. We discussed this. Y yo dije que no. And I said no. The old woman's face was set. Pero ahora. But now. She touched Miguel's head. Ahora tengo miedo por mi nieto. Now I'm afraid for my grandson. I'll fix this, Elena promised. I'll make sure you're safe, both of you. But even as she said it, she knew the math had changed. The cartel wasn't just threatening her anymore. They were targeting everyone who'd helped her. Miguel, his grandmother, potentially the entire village. The scope of the danger had expanded beyond anything she could control from a hospital bed. She called Harrison immediately. Sir, we have a situation. 20 minutes later, Harrison was back in her room with Colonel Morrison from JAG and a man Elena didn't recognize, mid-40s, civilian-clothes eyes that had seen things. Captain Reyes, the stranger said. My name is David Chen. I'm with DEA. I've been tracking the Morales cartel for 3 years. When your story broke, it created an opportunity we haven't had before. Public pressure, international attention, political will to actually do something. I want to use that. How? Elena asked. By making you the face of our operation. You testify at Webb's court-martial. You give interviews about cartel corruption. You become so visible, so protected, that they can't touch you without international consequences. And while you're drawing their attention, we dismantle their network piece by piece. You want me to be bait. I want you to be a symbol. There's a difference. Chen pulled out a tablet showing organizational charts. Esteban Morales is mid-level leadership, but he reports to someone higher, a man we've never identified, never even photographed. He's the ghost who runs the entire Colombian operation. If we can get Morales, we can get to the ghost. And you think threatening me draws Morales out? I think he's already committed. He paid $200,000 to eliminate you and you survived. That's embarrassing, expensive, and it makes him look weak to his bosses. He needs to finish what he started or he's the one who'll end up dead. Elena looked at Miguel, who was trying to follow the English conversation with limited success. And the civilians who helped me, Miguel and his grandmother, the village. Protected, Morrison said firmly. Full relocation with new identities if necessary. Federal witness protection. We won't leave them exposed. No. The old woman's voice cut through. She'd understood enough. No nos esconderemos. We won't hide. Lucharemos. We'll fight. Abuela. Miguel started. Mi hijo no se escondió. No me esconderé. My son didn't hide. I won't hide. She looked at Elena. Tú pelearás. Yo pelearé. Juntos. You'll fight. I'll fight. Together. Chen looked at Harrison. Major, can you explain to her the danger? She understands the danger. Elena interrupted. Her son was killed by the cartel for refusing to cooperate. She's lived with this threat her entire life. Don't condescend to her courage. Chen had the grace to look embarrassed. You're right. I apologize. He switched to Spanish, addressing the old woman directly. Senora, if you choose to stay, we'll provide security, protection for your village, resources to defend yourselves. But Captain Reyes is correct. The danger is real. El peligro siempre ha sido real, the old woman replied. The danger has always been real. Ahora tenemos la oportunidad de luchar de verdad. Now we have a chance to truly fight. Then we fight, Elena said. All of us. But we do it smart. We use their fear against them. And we don't stop until Morales and everyone above him are in prison or dead. Chen smiled. You know, Captain, when you recover DEA could use someone with your skills. Someone who understands both military operations and intelligence work. Someone the cartels have already proven they fear. One job at a time, Mr. Chen. First, we win this one. The plan took shape over the next week. Elena would continue her very public recovery, giving interviews, testifying at the court-martial, becoming an international symbol of resistance against corruption. Meanwhile, Chen's DEA team would track cartel communications using Elena's visibility to create paranoia within their ranks. Miguel and his grandmother would stay in their village, but with significant security upgrades, Colombian special forces, providing protection communication equipment, defensive measures. The village itself would become a fortress, demonstrating that helping American interests didn't mean becoming a victim. Elena's phone buzzed with another message from the cartel number. We see your plan. It won't work. You're still just a broken woman playing games you don't understand. She typed back, I understand perfectly. You're scared. You should be. The court-martial arrived faster than expected. Webb's lawyers had tried to delay, tried to negotiate, tried everything except face the evidence. But Morrison and her team were relentless. 3 months after Elena had been thrown from a helicopter, she sat in a wheelchair in front of a military tribunal and told her story. Webb sat 20 feet away, looking older than his 42 years. The man who'd thrown her into darkness now couldn't meet her eyes. Sergeant Webb, the lead prosecutor asked, did you cut Captain Reyes's harness and physically throw her from a helicopter at 8,000 feet? Webb's lawyer whispered something urgent. Webb shook his head and leaned into the microphone. Yes. The courtroom erupted. The judge called for order. And did you do this because you'd been paid by cartel operatives to eliminate Captain Reyes? Yes. How much were you paid? Webb's voice was barely audible. $200,000. And did you believe this action would result in Captain Reyes's death? Yes. Webb finally looked at her. I'm sorry, Elena. I know that doesn't fix anything. I know sorry isn't enough. But I am sorry. You trusted me, and I betrayed that trust for money. There's no justification, no excuse. Elena leaned forward. You're right. Sorry isn't enough. Your daughters are going to grow up knowing their father tried to murder a fellow Marine for drug money. Torres's children will learn their father died a traitor. And the cartel that paid you. They're still operating, still destroying lives. Your apology means nothing to the people your choices hurt. I know. Do you? Because from where I'm sitting, you made a calculation. Money versus honor. Comfort versus integrity. And you chose wrong. The only thing I want from you is information. Give me everything you know about Morales and his network. Help me destroy the people who corrupted you. That's the only apology I'll accept. Webb glanced at his lawyer, who was shaking his head frantically. Then he looked back at Elena. I'll tell you everything, on one condition. You're not in a position to negotiate, Morrison said sharply. Not for me, Webb said. For my daughters. I want them protected. Witness protection. New identities. They don't deserve to be targeted because of what I did. Elena felt the weight of that request. Webb's daughters were innocent. They'd done nothing wrong. But protecting them meant giving Webb something he wanted, which felt like rewarding betrayal. Agreed, she said finally. But they'll know the truth. No lies about how their father died a hero. They get protection and honesty. Take it or leave it. Webb nodded slowly. That's fair. More than fair. He turned to the tribunal. I'll provide full testimony about the cartel network, Morales's operations, communication protocols, everything. But I wanted in writing that my daughters get protection. Morrison and Chen exchanged glances. We can arrange that, Chen said. The trial continued for 2 more days. Patterson testified, trying to shift blame, but the evidence was overwhelming. The GPS recording the helicopter's flight data, witness testimony from the Marines who'd responded to Elena's distress call. It all pointed to conspiracy, attempted murder, corruption. The verdict was unanimous. Life in military prison for Webb. 30 years for Patterson. Dishonorable discharge. Forfeiture of all benefits. The judge's words were scathing, calling their actions a betrayal of everything the Marine Corps stands for. Elena felt no satisfaction in the verdict. Justice had been served, but Torres was still dead. Miguel still carried the weight of having killed a man. The cartel was still operational. The victory felt hollow, but it was still a victory. After the trial, Webb provided 6 hours of testimony about the cartel network. Names, locations, protocols, payment structures. Chen's team cross-referenced everything with existing intelligence and found it all checked out. "This is gold," Chen told Elena afterward. "With this information, we can move on Morales within the month. Maybe get him to flip on his superiors. Maybe finally identify the ghost." "Do it fast," Elena said, "before he has time to disappear." "We will. And Captain, I meant what I said about DEA. When you're ready, we'd love to have you." Elena had been thinking about that, about her future, about what came after the recovery, after the justice, after the revenge. Her Marine Corps career was over. Her field days were finished, but the war against the cartel wasn't. "I'll consider it," she said, "after we get Morales." The raid happened 2 weeks later. Elena watched from a command center in Bogota as DEA and Colombian special forces hit 5 cartel locations simultaneously. Morales was taken at his compound outside Medellin, caught completely by surprise. The interrogation lasted 3 days. Morales tried to stay silent, tried to protect his superiors, but the evidence was overwhelming and the pressure relentless. Finally faced with life in a Colombian prison or cooperation for a reduced sentence, he broke. "The ghost's name is Rafael Santoro," he told interrogators. "Former Colombian military, went private 15 years ago, built the network from nothing. He's smart, careful, paranoid. You'll never catch him." "Where is he?" Chen asked. "Nobody knows. He moves constantly. Different locations every week. Uses encrypted communications. We've never even met face to face. Everything goes through intermediaries." "Then how do we find him?" Morales smiled, and it wasn't pleasant. "You don't. He finds you, when he's ready." That night, Elena's phone buzzed with a message from a new number. "Captain Reyes, my name is Rafael Santoro. We should talk." Elena showed the message to Chen and Harrison immediately. He made contact. "Could be a trap," Harrison said. "Definitely a trap," Elena agreed, "but also an opportunity. He's reaching out because he's worried. Morales got caught. Webb and Patterson are in prison. His network is falling apart. He needs to stop the bleeding." "Or he needs to kill you to stop it," Chen pointed out. "Maybe. But if he wanted me dead, I'd already be dead. He's had weeks to make a move. Instead, he's talking. That means he wants something." She typed back, "What do you want to talk about?" The response came immediately. "A deal. You stop dismantling my network. I stop threatening your village friends. Everyone walks away alive." Elena laughed bitterly. "He thinks I'll negotiate." "Will you?" Chen asked. "Only long enough to find out where he is." She typed, "I'm listening." "Good. Meet me tomorrow, alone. Coordinates will follow." "Like hell you're going alone," Harrison said. "I won't be, but he needs to think I am." Elena looked at Chen. "Can your team follow me without him knowing?" "Depends on how careful he is, but we can try." The coordinates arrived an hour later. A coffee shop in Bogota's historical district. Public, crowded, neutral ground. Elena arrived early, dressed in civilian clothes, walking with a cane, but walking. She'd pushed her recovery hard over the past weeks, rebuilding strength through sheer determination. She still limped, still hurt, but she could move. Chen's team was positioned in the crowd, tourists with cameras, street vendors, casual diners, all armed, all watching. Santoro arrived exactly on time. He was younger than Elena expected, maybe late 30s, well-dressed, unremarkable in every way. The kind of face that disappeared in a crowd. He sat across from her and ordered coffee. "You look better than I expected," he said in perfect English. "The reports of your injuries were quite severe. Reports of my death were even worse, yet here I am." "Yes, here you are. Quite problematic, actually." He stirred his coffee slowly. "I paid good money to have you eliminated, and instead you survived, exposed my operation, arrested my people, and cost me millions in lost revenue. That's bad business, Captain Reyes. You corrupted American Marines and tried to murder me. That's bad morality, Mr. Santoro. Morality? He smiled. We're going to debate ethics in this business. Everyone's corrupt. Everyone has a price. Webb did, Patterson did, Torres did, even some of your precious DEA agents have prices. The only difference between them and you is that you haven't been offered enough yet. There isn't enough money in the world, Elena said flatly. Everyone says that, until the number gets high enough, until their family is threatened, until their choices run out. He leaned forward. I'm offering you $1 million to walk away. Stop the investigations. Stop the raids. Go live your life with a hero's reputation and enough money to never worry again. And if I refuse, then Miguel dies. His grandmother dies. Your sister Maria dies. Your father in his nursing home dies. Everyone you care about becomes a target until you either accept my offer or join them in the ground. Elena's hand tightened on her cane. Chen's team was listening through her wire. They had Santoro's confession on tape, his threats, his bribe attempt, everything they needed. You made a mistake, Elena said quietly. Did I? You assumed I'd be scared of losing people I love. And I am scared, terrified. But you know what scares me more? The idea that people like you win, that corruption and violence pay off, that doing the right thing means dying alone and broke while the bad guys get rich. Poetic, but irrelevant to business. No, it's entirely relevant. Elena stood leaning on her cane. Because I'm not walking away, and I'm not taking your money. And everyone you threatened, they're already under federal protection. You can't touch them. Santoro's expression darkened. You're making a terrible mistake. Made worse ones. Survived those too. She turned to leave. Santoro grabbed her wrist. This conversation isn't over. Chen's team moved instantly. 4 agents converged from different directions, weapons drawn. DEA hands where we can see them. Santoro released Elena's wrist and raised his hands slowly. Clever. Recording our conversation. Using yourself as bait. Very brave or very stupid. Little of both, Elena admitted. You think this ends me? I have lawyers, resources, protection. I'll be out before morning. Maybe, Elena said. But now we know who you are, what you look like, how you operate. And that recording. It's already been sent to Colombian authorities, American intelligence, and about a dozen news organizations. You're done, Santoro. Your anonymity is gone. Your network is exposed. Every move you make from now on, we'll be watching. For the first time, fear flickered in Santoro's eyes. You've signed your death warrant. People keep saying that. I'm still here. They arrested him there in the coffee shop, and Elena watched as they led him away in handcuffs. Chen approached, grinning. That was either brilliant or insane, possibly both. Definitely both, Elena agreed. Her hands were shaking now that the adrenaline was wearing off. Did we get everything we needed? Everything and more. His lawyers are going to have a field day, but with that recording plus Morales' testimony, we've got him. The ghost is in custody. The network is falling apart. You did it, Captain. Elena didn't feel victorious. She felt tired. Tired in her bones, in her soul, in every part of her that had been fighting for so long. I need to visit Miguel, she said. Need to tell him it's over. That he's safe. They flew her to the village the next day. Miguel and his grandmother were waiting along with what seemed like half the village population. When Elena stepped out of the helicopter, walking barely but walking, Miguel ran to her. Lo hiciste, he said. You did it. Los hombres malos se han ido. The bad men are gone. Sí, Elena replied, dropping to one knee so she could look him in the eyes. You're safe now. All of you are safe. Pero tú. But you. Miguel touched her face gently. Todavía estás triste. You're still sad. A little. Because it costs so much. But also happy. Because we won. Because you're safe. because justice happened. His grandmother approached, putting her hand on Elena's shoulder. Mi hijo estaría orgulloso, she said. My son would be proud. De ti, de Miguel, de todo. Of you, of Miguel, of everything. I wish I could have known him. Lo conociste, a través de su hijo, a través de su valentía. You did know him. Through his son, through his courage. They spent the afternoon in the village, and for the first time in months, Elena felt something like peace. The physical pain was still there. The psychological scars remained. But the weight of unfinished business had lifted. Chen's offer was waiting when she returned to Bogotá. A formal position with DEA focused on cartel intelligence and operations. Good salary, full benefits, and a chance to continue the work that had nearly killed her. Elena accepted. 6 months later, she stood in her new office in Washington, D.C., looking at photos on her wall. Miguel and his grandmother. Her Marine unit before the betrayal. The village that had saved her life. And one photo of the Caquetá River taken from a helicopter at 8,000 feet. Her sister visited that afternoon, bringing their father for his first lucid day in weeks. He looked at Elena with clear eyes and said, Mija, you're walking. Yeah, Dad, I'm walking. Good. Keep walking. Keep moving forward. That's how we survive. We keep moving. I know. You taught me that. He smiled, the expression fading as his mind started to drift again. But for that moment, he'd been present. He'd seen her standing, surviving, thriving despite everything. Maria hugged her after their father left. Are you happy? Really happy? Elena thought about it. About the pain that still woke her at night. About the limp she'd have forever. About Torres's death and Miguel's burden, and all the costs that came with survival. I'm alive, she said finally, and I'm fighting for something that matters. That's not happiness exactly, but it's purpose, and right now that's enough. The work continued. Santoro went to trial and was convicted on 14 counts of trafficking, corruption, and conspiracy. His network collapsed. Other cartels learned that targeting American operators came with consequences they couldn't afford. Miguel grew up with therapy and support processing his trauma, learning to carry the weight of what he'd done. He wrote Elena letters every month telling her about school, about his grandmother, about the village that was slowly rebuilding. Webb and Patterson served their sentences, their families destroyed by choices they'd made. Elena never visited them, never forgave them. But she also never let hatred consume her. They were broken men paying for their crimes. That was enough. And Elena, she became something she'd never expected, a symbol. Not just of survival, but of the refusal to accept corruption, to tolerate betrayal, to let evil win through fear. The woman who fell 8,000 feet and turned that fall into a weapon against the people who'd thrown her. Years passed. Her body healed as much as it ever would. The limp became part of her, not a limitation, but a reminder of what she'd survived. She trained new agents, sharing the lessons learned in Colombian jungles. She took down other cartels, dismantled other networks, made the world a slightly less corrupt place, one operation at a time. On the 10th anniversary of her fall, Elena returned to the Caquetá River. Miguel was 20 years old now, studying engineering at university, on a scholarship Elena had helped secure. His grandmother had passed 2 years prior, peaceful in her sleep, having lived to see the cartel that killed her son destroyed. They stood at the river's edge, looking at the water that had saved Elena's life. Do you ever regret it? Miguel asked. Everything you went through, everything it cost. Elena thought about the question, about broken bones and shattered trust, about Torres's death and Webb's betrayal, about pain that never fully left and scars that would never fade. No, she said finally, because I'm still here, because you're safe, because the bad men didn't win. They threw me from a helicopter thinking it would end me. Instead, it taught me that I'm stronger than anything they can do to me. That's not something I regret. That's something I carry with pride. Miguel nodded understanding in ways only someone who'd killed to save a life could understand. Papa used to say that strength isn't about never falling. It's about always getting back up. Your father was a wise man. So are you. They stood together in comfortable silence, watching the river flow past, indifferent to their struggles, their victories, their survival. Just water moving through stone, constant and unchanging. Elena thought about that moment in free fall when she'd had 3 seconds to understand she was going to die. How wrong that assumption had been. She hadn't died. She'd transformed. Become something harder to kill than the woman who'd been thrown into darkness. She'd learned the most important lesson survival could teach: falling wasn't the same as failing. Falling was just another opportunity to prove how high you could rise afterward. They threw her from a helicopter at 8,000 feet without a parachute. They thought gravity and betrayal would be enough to kill Captain Elena Reyes. They were wrong. Because gravity pulls you down but will carries you forward. And Elena's will was unbreakable, proven in Colombian jungles and military tribunals in every step she took, on legs that shouldn't have worked in every battle she fought. That logic said she should have lost. She didn't just survive the fall, she weaponized it, turned it into the foundation of a war against corruption that would define her life. Some people are broken by betrayal. Others are forged by it into something stronger than steel. Elena Reyes proved that the human spirit, properly tempered by adversity and sharpened by purpose, is the most dangerous weapon in any arsenal. And when they write the history of the war against the cartels, when they tell stories of impossible survival and unbreakable will, they'll start with the woman who fell 8,000 feet and came back not just to survive, but to win.